Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly through the folds of time and step into a Malian gold town so dusty, so forgotten, that even the vultures need directions. You're here as the sun teases the horizon with a bruised peach glow, and fair warning, you probably won't survive this if you expect 5-star room service, though the local donkeys might rate it 3 hay bales out of 5. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and the exact time down in the comments. It's always fun to know who else is up past midnight. Pretending ancient history is melatonin. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Warm dust hops around your ankles as you trudge across the hard-packed courtyard. The air still clings to last night's chill, but the promise of blazing Sahel heat already sweats through your linen tunic. A donkey brays in your ear, loud enough to make your heartbeat perform a drum solo, and for a moment you consider braying back just to set boundaries. Instead, you scratch its wiry mane and whisper the universal morning chant, 5 more. Minutes, it ignores you naturally. Union rules for donkeys are brutal. Your first chore is water. You lift a goatskin bucket from the communal well, its rope rough as month-old beard stubble. The pulley creaks in protest like it too hasn't had coffee. Below, the water glimmers faintly, reflecting the rosy dawn. You haul the bucket up and splash your face, feeling the grit loosen. One rinse does little think of it as histories. Gentle exfoliation package, free with every sunrise. Across the yard, women in indigo-dyed wrappers spread millet to dry on reed mats. One hums a tune you swear you half remember from a modern Afrobeats playlist. Music travels funny like that. A mainstream fact sneaks in while you watch. During the 14th century zenith of the Mali Empire under Mansa Musa, towns like this one thrummed as vital spokes on a trade wheel that spun gold northward and salt southward, funding libraries in Timbuktu and gossip in every tavern from Gao to Cairo. The women gossip. To humanity's oldest social currency, though, there's concerns whose rooster serenaded the moon most off-key last night. Your morning rhythm quickens. Feed the donkeys a scoop of millet husks. Check their hooves for pebbles, and adjust the fraying ropes that tether them to a half-rotted post. A quirky fringe tidbit floats up. Some locals claim brushing a donkey's ears at dawn wards off desert spirits that like to still voices. You brush anyway. Worst case, the donkey feels fancy. Best case, you keep your voice to shout at future donkeys. A neighbor emerges from his mud brick hut with eyes half closed, carrying a flat loaf the size of a shield. He breaks off a chunk, smears it with honey, and hands you a piece. The honey tastes of wildflowers that bloom in stubborn little bursts after rare rainstorms, proof that even the savannah occasionally indulges in confetti. You thank him, mouth. Full manners optional before sunrise. As light climbs the walls. You notice the architecture, sun-baked bricks laced with rice husks, arranged by hands that understood airflow long before ceiling fans. Tiny triangular vents near the roofline funnel warm air outward, making early mornings cooler inside. Yet historians still argue whether this ventilation trick migrated from Sunni builders farther west or emerged independently here. The way good ideas sometimes sprout in parallel like weeds in civilization's garden. In the central lane, a boy much too energetic for dawn hustles past with a tray of clay oil lamps. He's selling them to miners heading out. You buy one, partly for light, partly because his sales pitch, bright enough to blind a hyena, deserves commission. A joke forms in your head about hyena optometry, but you swallow it, saving your comedic ammo for when the pickaxes start. Swinging, you walk toward the edge of town where low mounds of tailings glisten dull gray. Every pile testifies to nights spent chasing a shimmer that could turn life from scraping to strolling. The miners gather here early, comparing callous palms like athletes flexing medals. One old-timer shows you a nugget the size of a grape. He calls it retirement and quickly pockets it again as though the sand might mug him before descending into the pits later. You help load supplies, coils of rope, gourds of water, and bundles of sticks soaked in sheep fat poor man's. Torches. Your palms sting from gripping rough fibers and you long for gloves. Here's joke number 2, gloves exist. They're just called tougher skin and come in only one size eventually. You pause to watch the sunrise crest fully, staining the rooftops a molten orange. Somewhere, a rooster finally nails the correct key, and the town collectively exhales. Breakfast bowls of thick millet porridge appear, flavored with dried baobab fruit. You eat yours under a thorn tree whose sparse leaves throw finger-like shadows over your shoulders. Nearby, a cat stalks a scorpion with the misplaced confidence of someone who's only read half the instruction manual. You consider intervening, but decide natural selection doubles as live entertainment. A young girl sidles up, offering a palm-sized amulet woven from river reeds. She claims it repels toothaches. You're skeptical yet charmed. After all, dentistry costs here equal hope the herbs work. You tie it around your wrist, adding to a collection of trinkets rattling like a portable souvenir shop. When you lean against a wall to stretch your back, flakes of dried mud crumble, releasing a smell you didn't know smells could time travel. Sweet, earthy, faintly metallic. It's the aroma of iron-rich laterite, same stuff the walls are built from. Reminder, the entire settlement is basically a giant slow-cook oven at midday, so enjoy this relative cool. Overhead, vultures circle with patient arrogance. You wave. They don't wave back, diva birds. Another joke breezes through. If vultures had Yelp, this place would get 5 stars, would scavenge again. Someone clangs a bronze bell near the mosque, signaling morning prayer. You'll join soon, but for now you savor the last seconds before schedule clamps its jaws. Time softens. You hear individual grains of sand shifting under sandals, a mnemonic for history's quiet persistence. You imagine scholars centuries later arguing about whether this very street existed 2 yards left or right, laughing because you could, in theory, nudge a brick and rewrite their thesis. But you've got chores, not cosmic pranks. The donkey. From earlier noses your side, searching for a second breakfast. You oblige with a handful of wilted greens pilfered from your own meager stash. Its gratitude manifests as a sneeze that speckles your sleeve with donkey glitter. Lovely. At least the animal's breath warms your arm, and warmth is currency in the crisp morning dot as the bell's echo fades. Townsfolk converge toward the mosques. Courtyard in a gentle tide of color ochre, indigo, sunset red. You join, footing crunching over crushed pottery shards repurposed as gravel. A quick rinse from the ablution jar, cool water sluicing dust off your feet, and you step onto the woven mat. The first collective bow releases tension like unscrewing a jar too tight. In that hush you feel connected not only to the people beside you, but to caravans already snaking across the desert, to distant port cities waiting for gold. Your hands might help unearth dot prayer ends, and with it, the short reprieve. Workers peel away toward the mines, the fields, the livestock pens. You follow the miners, lamp in hand, stomach fluttering between dread and the delicious maybe of striking it rich. Ahead, the ground yawns in narrow shafts, each entry framed with crooked timber and faith. A miner taps your shoulder, ready. To cough dirt? You grin, shrug, and think joke number 3. I've been inhaling breakfast, I might as well inhale wealth. He laughs, then vanishes down a ladder. You set your lamp alight, the flame sputtering like a toddler learning to whistle, and start your own descent. The sun is barely up, yet your day is already half spent. The ladder creaks like an old gossip spilling secrets as you grip each slick rung. Lamp clenched between your teeth because apparently you didn't pay extra for hands-free illumination. Wet clay smears your palms. and the wooden side rails sweat with condensation, turning the descent into a slow-motion slapstick routine. One wrong move, and you'll invent the medieval elevator. Someone above you mutters a half-hearted, "Mind your step," which, given the circumstances, ranks among history's least useful advice right after "just avoid the plague." The shaft narrows, pinching your shoulders until every breath feels negotiated. Your lamp flame draws tiny arcs of shadow over the timber supports, revealing carvings where bored miners have scratched crude talismans, stick figure camels, crescent moons, something that might be a fish or very confused horse. You brush a fingertip over one carving of an open eye, supposedly warding off collapses. Quirky fringe tidbit alert. Locals swear the eye must be refreshed with a dab of donkey milk every new moon to keep working. Given last night's donkey antics, you decide the superstition's survival is 90% persistence, 10% available dairy. At the bottom, your boots squish into ankle-deep mud streaked with mica. Miners crouch inside tunnels like furtive crabs, tapping away with iron picks whose rhythmic clinks sound almost musical, if your favorite genre is existential percussion. A boy no older than 12 scoots past pushing a wooden tray loaded with ore fragments. He offers a wink plus joke, number one of the day. "If you see a shiny rock, call me, I'm paid by the sparkle." You laugh, partly because the humor lands, partly because breathing while laughing temporarily overrides the smell of damp earth and sweat. A foreman waves you over, pointing to a fresh vein shimmering faintly in torchlight. He demonstrates how to angle the pick so flakes slide free without pulverizing into worthless dust. The motion is hypnotic. Tap, pry, slide, collect. You mimic him, muscles humming, chiseling little freckles of gold that twinkle in the guttering. Flame. Mainstream historical fact slides neatly into your head as you work. At its 14th century peak, Mali accounted for nearly 2/3 of the Old World's gold supply, fueling coinage clear across the Mediterranean and giving European monarchs something to brag about at awkward dinner parties. Sweat dribbles down your spine despite the mine's cool air. You pause to sip from a goatskin flask. The water tastes faintly of leather and last week's onion, but hydration has never been picky. Around you, miners speak in hushed tones, gold pit whispers, they call it, because drawing attention to a rich seam is like tweeting your password. Voices bounce off the walls, merging into a low oceanic roar that's equal parts camaraderie and currency speculation. You notice a narrow chimney above, funneling stale air upward where it exits through cleverly hidden vents topside. Historians still argue whether these ventilation shafts were a homegrown innovation or borrowed from Berber engineers who once roamed this territory selling architectural tips along with desert gossip. Either way, you're grateful every lungful of slightly fresher air feels like a down payment on continued consciousness. Miner hands you a leather pouch half full of dust and flakes. Gold is measured here by the mitkul, roughly 4.5 grams, but nobody carries scales this deep underground. Instead, they eyeball the hall practice makes precision, or at least plausible confidence. Joke number 2 surfaces. Gold might be dense, but so might before breakfast. The foreman smirks, probably filing the line away for later tavern retelling. The flicker of your lamp suddenly dims, the wick drowning in its own tallow. Darkness pounces so quickly you wonder if you've blinked wrong. A palpable hush settles. Even the picks freeze mid-swing. Superstition time. Everyone believes that when a lamp falters unprovoked, a restless spirit prowls nearby, hunting for a shortcut to daylight through some unfortunate ribcage. To counter this, an older miner produces a small clay whistle shaped like a chameleon and blows a shrill note. The fringe belief claims spirits hate surprises. Personally, you figure no one likes being jump-scared at work. Either way, the lamp sputters back to life, and collective muscles unclench. You didn't realize you were holding your breath until your lungs stage a protest. You shift into a different tunnel, narrower still, ducking so low your spine resembles a question mark. Here the ore gives way to quartz veins, and the temperature drops enough to fog your exhale. Your fingers, numb but stubborn, scrape flakes into a copper pan. Tiny golden slivers congregate like party guests who heard there might be free food. You marvel at how something so small can reroute the fates of empires, build mosques, fund caravans, and if you're lucky, buy you a fresh pair of sandals without toe. Ventilation. Break time is called with a clank of iron on stone. Workers tuck picks into belts and shuffle toward a modest alcove where torches burn brighter and baskets of roasted ground nuts await. The nuts are smoky, salty, pure morale. Someone cracks a crude joke about ground nuts being a miner's teeth. Training program. That's light joke number 3. Delivered with a grin missing 2 front teeth for authenticity. As you snack. A griot in training perched atop an overturned bucket hums an improvised tune about the brave souls whispering with Earth's belly. The melody loops lazily, like a cat chasing its own tail, and you feel tension slide off your shoulders. In your peripheral vision, glints and wall crevices catch torchlight, reminding you wealth often hides in plain sight, waiting for just the right angle or just the right storyteller. Conversation drifts to rumors. Someone claims a massive nugget, size of a newborn goat, was found 2 days north. Reality check. Newborn goats are cute, but wildly variable in size. You mentally file the tip under sounds like someone's promoting tourism. The chatter shifts to politics. Talk of Mansa Musa's distant successors squabbling over tribute routes. Proof that even golden empires can't buy family harmony. You stretch, rolling your neck until it pops like a stubborn drum, then stand to explore a side passage few bother with. The floor here slopes downward, puddles reflecting torchlight like molten bronze. You crouch, dip your hand into one. The water is ice cold, fed by an underground seep. A quick sip tastes metallic, almost bloody, which makes sense when you recall iron deposits often mingle with gold geology's version of buy one, get one free. You could bottle it as artisanal mineral water if you survive long enough to invent branding. Rumble ripples through the walls, small, but enough to quiet laughter. Eyes meet, pupils dilated by torchlight and concern. The foreman presses an ear to the wall, judging whether the earth is shrugging or plotting a full-body shake. He nods once, signaling all good, and chatter resumes, though softer. Another debate historians still squabble over. How accurate were these old-school seismic senses? Did experience really trump instruments, or were they just lucky? Listening. To the foreman, you're betting on a bit of both. Your break ends. It's back to work. You return to your vein, now lit by a friend's lamp while yours cools. Each swing of the pick sends grit stinging your cheeks. The repetition becomes meditative. You fall into a rhythm where time flattens. You think about last night's donkey ballet, about the rooftop stargazing you hope to claim later, about whether the amulet against toothache doubles as a miner's insurance policy. Eventually, the leather pouch at your belt gains a satisfying heft. You run fingers through the dust dangerously close to a dragon horde cliche, but force yourself to cinch it tight and hand it to the foreman for tally up top. Trust issues? Sure, yet down here, everyone knows stealing gold is easier than stealing a reputation. Word travels faster than caravans, and there's no mute button on public shame. Shift's end arrives with a double clang. You climb the same ladder, this time with legs wobbling like poorly set jelly. Halfway up, sunlight spears down the shaft, so bright you squint as if the sky had suddenly switched to high definition. Emerging topside, you inhale air that smells of scorching sand and freedom, an intoxicating mix after hours tasting rock dust. You hand your lamp to a boy who collects them, his oversized basket clinking like a hardware symphony. He thanks you and throws into his parting dig. "Come back tomorrow, Caves, miss your jokes." You salute with 2 filthy fingers, then trudge toward the well for a pre-lunch rinse. Mind already drifting to how furnace fires will lick at this newly won ore. But that, friend, is a different whisper waiting in hotter air. The mind's gloom still clings to your eyelashes when you step back into the blaze of high morning. But there's no time for existential sunbathing. You swap the pick for a wide wooden pan, sling a braided basket of lunch over one shoulder, and head downhill toward the slow creek that serves this town the way a sleepy barista serves caffeine grudgingly. But eventually, pebbles crunch under your sandals. Each crackle feels like a telegram from your sore arches complaining about management. A dragonfly keeps pace, iridescent wings pulsing like tiny disco lights. You pretend it's your bodyguard, though you doubt. It could fend off anything bigger than an overly confident mosquito. Joke number 1, on the bright side. Its security rates are literally insect-sized. The creek appears as a green ribbon stitched through dusty grass. Tall reeds sway, whispering local gossip about which crocodile has the worst breath. You kneel on a flat rock, grateful for the breeze that slides off the water and under your sweat-drenched tunic like a polite pickpocket. Your pan dips below the surface, and salty water floods in, heavy with promise and tadpoles. A white-necked heron stands a few steps away, cocking its head the way judgmental relatives eye holiday cooking. You swirl the pan in slow circles, letting lighter sand spill over the lip while heavier grains settle. The heron narrows its eyes, clearly unimpressed with your wrist technique. The first few passes yield. Nothing but mica flakes falsely auditioning for Gold, the musical. You sigh, remembering the furnace heat still to come, and adjust your angle. Mainstream historical fact time. Panning like this, called washing, complemented deep shaft mining throughout the Mali Empire, ensuring even the smallest particles of gold dust ended up in trade pouches bound for North Africa and eventually the mint houses of Venice. Some travelers wrote that whole families spent dawn to dusk kneeling at rivers, their spines permanently curved into question marks that asked, "Was it worth it?" A distant shout floats over the water. A child waves a reed spear in triumph, brandishing a struggling catfish longer than his forearm. You recall last night's cat versus scorpion bout and decide the town's unofficial slogan should be, "Everything here hunts something else," including your free time. Joke number 2. You're beginning to feel like the only thing that doesn't bite is the economy. And even that nibbles dot as you swirl again, a shimmer finally glints. You hold your breath, tilt the pan, and there 2 pinhead-sized nuggets lounge at the bottom like royalty in a mud bath. You grin wide enough to invite sunburn on your molars. Before you can congratulate yourself, an older woman 2 rocks downstream clicks her tongue and calls out, "Tilt less, swirl more, gold is shy." She's been sifting longer than you've been alive. The river practically pays her rent. You mimic her slower rhythm, and within minutes, 3 more flecks join the royal party. A quirky fringe tidbit drifts to memory. Some villagers sprinkle crushed kola nut into their pans, claiming the bitter scent entices gold into clumping. Skeptics say it merely deters nosy fish, but you happen to have a kola nut in your lunch pouch. Why not? You rub a fragment into powder and dust the water. The heron blinks, perhaps filing a complaint with OSHA, Ornithological Safety and Hissy Association. Remarkably, your next swirl corrals a sliver of gleaming dust. Coincidence, chemistry, or kola voodoo? Historians still argue whether such folk techniques had measurable results or just boosted morale enough to extend work hours and morale. Like gold, converts nicely into productivity that you empty the pan's winnings into a goatskin purse tied to your belt, its interior coated with shea butter so particles don't cling. A gust rattles nearby reeds, revealing a pair of goats nibbling illicitly on river grass. You recognize one troublemaker, yep, the same goat that launched a coup in the courtyard at lunch yesterday. Its glare says, "Witness my kingdom." You salute the furry rebel. Good leadership deserves acknowledgement. Time slides, syrup slow. The creek burbles like a low conversation. Cicadas layer a metallic drone above it, and somewhere upriver a drummer tests rhythms on an overturned calabash. You fall into hypnotic motion, scoop, dunk, swirl, pour. Every so often you straighten to stretch aching shoulders, scanning the waterline for crocodiles. The locals swear one ancient croc nicknamed Grandfather Scales guards a submerged sandbar, rumored to hold fist-sized nuggets. Scholars debate whether the tale began as a safety warning or a clever scam to keep amateurs like you from hogging prime real estate. Either way, you're happy to let Grandfather keep his retirement fund. Lunch arrives when your stomach issues. A formal grievance? You unwrap millet cakes smeared with ground peanut and honey. The sweetness coats your tongue, rebooting your energy meter. You toss a crumb to the Huron, who disdainfully ignores carbohydrates, then wipes sticky fingers on your leggings. Joke number 3. Laundry day in a gold town doubles as archaeological dig layers of dust. Grime and ambition all needing separate rinse cycles. Post-lynch, the sun leans westward, softening its glare. Shadows of date palms stretch across the creek. Like lazy cats, you shift to a shadier bend, knees grateful for cooler rocks. Here the current slows, letting fine silt settle perfect for dust concentrations. Your first scoop dredges up black sand heavy with magnetite. Holding a borrowed lodestone near the pan, you watch iron grains skitter toward it, clearing room to spot specks of yellow. It's oddly satisfying, like sweeping a floor that rewards you with confetti. A passing trader once claimed magnets were sorcery. You prefer early science with bonus showmanship. While you work, 2 teenage boys haul a wicker trap from deeper water, sloshing with silver burblefish. They nudge one another, eyeing your pan. You preempt complaints by flipping them a tiny flake, shimmering in midair before landing in their hands. Instant goodwill, they shout thanks and jog off. Already spinning a story about the generous prospector who throws gold like breadcrumbs. By dinner, you'll be mythologized into someone who bathes in molten bullion. Fame here moves at camel speed, slow but unavoidable. Another hour passes. Your purse now feels like a small bell pulling at your belt. Yet each fresh pan offers diminishing returns. The Huron stalks away upriver, signing your performance review with a dismissive wing flap. Accepting the cue, you rinse the pan, splash cool water over your face, liquid applause and stand. The breeze carries the distant clang of blacksmith hammers. Furnace time beckons. On the walk back, you pause at a fig tree just leafing after last season's monsoon. Its bark bears carved Towie marks local couples cutting notches for each year of marriage, or so the story goes. You count one column of 20, then notice the final mark is double scored, deeper, as though the carver meant it to shout across time. Love, like gold, occasionally demands bold font. You smile, touch the groove, and promise to carve something. Someday maybe a joke about donkey milk eye wards if romance fails, cresting the hill. The town spreads below, adobe roofs glowing honey orange. Smoke wafts from kitchen pits. Children chase a blown gourd lid as though it's a royal decree. You check your purse, cinch it tighter, and savor a flicker of secret pride. Wealth might be relative. Your haul would barely buy a silk sleeve in Cairo, but here tonight, it can purchase sweet tamarind cakes, a repair on worn sandal straps, and perhaps a song from the griot who enjoys tips slipped with theatrical flair. As you step onto the main street, donkey brays greet you like raucous trumpets. One particular local gulpies recognizes the sound of your pouch clinking and ambles over with clear intentions. You laugh, scratch its ear, yes. The same ear that supposedly scares desert spirits, and promise it a treat after the furnace shift. The donkey snorts. You suspect it understands conditional clauses. The sun hovers just above the horizon, turning dust motes into floating embers. You merge into the current of townsfolk heading toward the smithy, ready to watch raw ore and river. Dust glow white hot and maybe transmute your aches into something brighter. But as the first sparks fly ahead, your mind already drifts back to the whispering creek and that disapproving heron, reminding you tomorrow the river will still be judging your form gold as shy tilt less, swirl more. Some lessons glint longer than any nugget. The smithy squats at the far edge of town, a low roundhouse whose walls pulse orange as though the sun itself rented a timeshare inside. You step through the reed curtain and the heat slaps you full face, no handshake, just a molten bear hug. Sweat blooms instantly, convincing you your pores have been training for this moment all day. Sparks pop from the central furnace, drifting upward like rebellious fireflies before snuffing out in the thick, smoky rafters. If your nose had opinions, it would be filing a formal complaint about the cocktail of charcoal, singed goat hide, and something you're 60% sure is roasted scorpion tail. Turns out even insects get a glow up here. Joke number 1, welcome to the original spa day, minus cucumbers, plus third-degree exfoliation. 3 smiths stand barefoot on clay, bellows strapped to their armpits like extra lungs. With each synchronized squat and pull, the furnace roars, a dragon fed on air and raw ambition. You edge closer, clutching your goatskin purse. One smith, cheeks streaked with ochre symbols, beckons you to dump your river winnings into a clay crucible already half filled with quartz-rich ore from the mine. The mix looks disappointingly dull, like porridge that forgot seasoning. But alchemy is really just extreme patience plus fire, so you shrug and tip the pouch. Flux swirl, catching light one last time before vanishing into the blaze. Mainstream historical fact sneaks through the crackling noise. Sahelian smiths mastered furnace tech long before some European cities learned to keep rain out of their living rooms, hitting temperatures above 1,100 degrees Celsius with simple bellows and termite clay insulation. Such efficiency kept caravans stocked with gold beads, precise enough to serve as currency from Fez to Cairo. You watch the bellows team make it look as easy as pumping a bicycle tire. Only the bike is a volcano that never signals when it's about to sneeze lava dot to kill minutes while metal liquefies. Everyone swaps gossip hotter than the crucible. A slender apprentice leans in and whispers about a rumored tax hike from the Sultan's envoys, something about funding new camel patrols on the salt route. Another smith counters with insider news. Timbuktu's scholars have imported a stack of Greek medical scrolls, though apparently half the diagrams depict spleens upside down. Historians still argue whether these scrolls arrived via honest trade, or were liberated from a careless caravan whose guard mistook philosophy for firewood. Either way, the town's lone healer will soon claim a doctorate in inverted organs. You're handed a long iron rod, its tip flattened into a spatula, and instructed to skim impurities, slag off the molten surface. The crucible glows white. Looking into it feels like reading the comments section of The Sun. You scrape cautiously, watching black foam slide away like burnt marshmallow. Joke number 2 arrives unbidden. You mutter, "Who ordered the cosmic soup without croutons?" "The nearest." Smith snorts, nearly missing his bellows rhythm. A quirky fringe tidbit surfaces from the chatter. Some swear sprinkling crushed ostrich eggshell into the melt coaxes gold to clump faster, making separation easier. Skeptics claim it's merely an excuse to eat more omelets. Tonight, someone tosses in a pinch for luck. You expect drama, maybe sparks singing Ave Maria, but nothing changes except the faint smell of fried breakfast. Still, belief has its own alchemy. Everyone smiles like the eggshell just guarantee bigger nuggets, minutes. Stretch measured in sweat beads racing down your spine. The apprentice tells a joke about a camel that tried to pay toll with counterfeit salt line delivery flat as hammered tin, but everyone laughs, relief seeking any crack. You wipe your brow with a sleeve already soaked. By dawn, that tunic could stand on its own from starch salt. You wonder if the donkeys feel this hot hauling sacks through midday sun. Then you remember the donkey ear superstition and decide they at least have magical ear conditioning. The master smith finally nods. All motion freezes. With tongs thick as a child's wrist, he lifts the crucible and tilts it into a narrow clay channel that snakes to a row of shallow molds. A glittering ribbon pours out liquid sunrise, mesmerizing and terrifying because one slip could plate your foot in precious metal for eternity. Mythic way to get a gold toe, sure, but sandal shopping would be a nightmare. The stream settles, cooling fast, surface rippling before solidifying into squat ingots called banda. While they harden, you're tasked with fanning the cooling bed using a woven mat. Each wave wafts eddies of scorching air into your face like arguing with a dragon who only breathes emojis. Joke number 3. You say, at least I'm collecting frequent flyer miles to the afterlife. A bellows guy chuckles, but his laughter morphs into rumor time again. He claims a caravan just arrived with silk dyed a purple so deep it looks black until moonlight hits it. You picture it draped over your shoulders, imagine the Huron's judgmental glare fading into envy. Dressing well is the ultimate clapback to waterfowl dot with ingots cooled enough to touch. The master flips one out. It lands in your palm, warm and heavy, maybe twice the weight of the morning's creek haul. He scratches a groove into its edge to test softness real gold yields without argument. Satisfied, he passes it to a treasurer's runner who logs ownership with a reed stylus on a wax tablet. You sign by pressing your thumb into the wax. The print bears traces of charcoal and river silt. Your days resume in grayscale. Now comes the gossip tax. In exchange for furnace time, you owe a story. You recount the fig tree with its deep double notch, speculating whether that carver still lives or became part of the rooftop stars. The smiths hum appreciatively. One murmurs that love longer than 20 harvests deserves a bronze song, maybe even a gold one if the Sultan's porch accountant looks away. The apprentice sweeps up spilled slag for later reuse. Nothing is wasted here. He points at a clump, resembling glassy obsidian, and notes villagers grind it into face paint believed to shield against desert glare. Historians debate whether the real benefit is sun protection or fashion flex. But either way, tomorrow you might sport sparkle eyeliner that even the donkey will respect. Heat finally thins enough to breathe without sodding lungs. As you step outside, cool dusk air slaps you with gratitude. Behind you, the furnace exudes a low growl, sated for now. You pocket a small gold shaving the master flicked your way as a tip, its edges jagged like a lightning bolt you can't quite throw. The shaving joins your coin, your amulet, your swarm of odd trinkets clinking like restless cicadas. Walking homeward through indigo shadows, you think of the scholars still arguing scroll origins, the ostrich egg theorists, the purple silk waiting in caravan chests. Most of all, you think of molten gold flowing like captured sunset, rumors braided with metal until both become currency. Tomorrow, when you line up on the Sultan's tax porch, every glint in your pouch will carry tonight's furnace glow gossip, humming memories so hot they might still radiate warmth through the scales. Dawn barely blinks when the town's main artery and adobe colonnade, nicknamed the Sultan's Porch, already throbs with anxious bodies. You fall into the queue, sandaled toes nudging a groove worn by generations of hopeful taxpayers. The veranda's carved beams loom overhead, etched with geometric knots so intricate you could lose a decade tracing them. Story goes a master carver, sealed a hair from his beard into each motif for luck. In the rising light, the designs resemble serpents slithering across clay. Joke number 1, you wonder if the beard hairs now count as a historic landmark. Please don't pluck the artifacts. Your fresh ingot and river dust rest in a goatskin pouch tucked against your ribs. Every jostle from the crowd makes it jingle, a tiny maraca announcing, "Please audit me." Ahead, a pair of guards polish their spears' copper blades, letting the sun ricochet into waiting eyes, a subtle reminder that late taxes earn sharper attention. One guard yawns wide enough to swallow a sparrow. You mentally gift him a coffee bean, though here caffeine is still masquerading as mystery berries on distant Ethiopian shrubs. Mainstream historical fact slips into the aroma of tension. Mali's rulers levied a gold duty called the Kabar al-Dahab, roughly 1/5 of each find, payable on stamped clay weights or in kind at the treasurer's discretion. Traders grumbled yet complied. Stability on caravan routes was worth the tariff. You shuffle forward, rehearsing polite phrases in case your ingot somehow weighs less on the official scales than it did in your daydreams. A wooden signboard lists acceptable forms of payment: nuggets dust sealed in beeswax, or objects of equal splendor. Someone once paid with an ivory chess set carved so finely each pawn wore a smirk. The treasurer keeps it in the back, occasionally staging matches against himself when lines grow dull. Historians still argue whether that donation was appreciative tribute or a clever bribe to speed future transactions. Either way, the Ivory King reportedly still lacks one rook pawnshop casualty or bureaucratic stress chew toy. Nobody knows. Beside you, a woman balances a clay jar of gold dust atop her head, strides without a wobble, and hums the same tune the indigo-dyed millers sang yesterday. She catches your stare, winks, then whispers that humming confuses the scale superstition claims. A steady note flatters the metal into honesty. Quirky fringe tidbit delivered. You clear your throat, test a hum, but it exits like a goat discovering opera, so you abort mission dot near the porch entrance. A scribe perched on a 3-legged stool dockets names with swift reed strokes. He nods you forward, asks lineage details, and carefully writes them beside a charcoal donkey doodle. Apparently your ear-brushing claims made rounds, and doodles help the treasurer remember faces. You shrug. At least they didn't sketch the disapproving Huron. Joke number 2, if bureaucracy embraced bird portraits, filing cabinets would need beaks. Finally, the treasurer summons you. He's wrapped in layered cotton-dyed maroon, eyes sharp as flint behind a lattice of wrinkles. One brow hikes, here comes squint number 1, as he gestures to the brass balance scale suspended from a cedar frame. Polished cowrie shells mark increments. You place your ingot on one pan. Its thunk echoes across the veranda like a modest drum. On the opposite side, a teenage assistant flicks on standardized weights. First a large bronze mitcoal, then smaller fractions until arm's level. The beam wavers, settles. The treasurer leans forward, squint number 2, measuring not mass but your heartbeat. He records the weight, 4 mitcoals, good haul, and slides 1 coin's worth back your way. Kabar, he intones. 1/5 vanished, just like that. Your purse instantly feels lighter, but so does your anxiety. Legality buys peace of mind. Next comes the dust. You untie the goatskin, pour its glittering contents into a shallow ivory saucer. The assistant spreads it thin with a goose feather. Specks of mica lurk like counterfeit coins at a carnival. He blows gently, mica skitters away while heavier gold stays put. The treasurer pinches sample dust, rolls it between fingers, then licks the tiniest fleck onto his tongue. Surprise, real gold tastes of exactly nothing, and any flavor means adulteration. His lips purse, then relax, your dust passes. He scoops out the tax share with a tiny bronze shovel shaped like a crescent moon. A flourish that probably costs extra but looks fantastic. The veranda bustles behind you. A salt merchant complains his slabs keep chipping. Weight loss I can't afford. While a leather worker distracts guards with free sandals in hopes of a lenient measure. Joke number 3 emerges inside your skull. If everyone offered shoes, the treasurer would own a centipede's wardrobe. You don't voice it. Sarcasm is taxed. Hereby confused looks. Transaction complete. The treasurer palms a clay chit stamped with the lion emblem of current rule. This chit certifies your remaining gold proof against roadside extortion and, importantly, clearance to spend it flamboyantly. You bow slightly dramatic for effect. His mouth twitches, maybe a micro smile, maybe indigestion. On stepping away, relief floods your muscles like cool river water. A boy under the veranda sells tamarind juice from a calabash. You pay with copper, sip the sweet sour brew, and let sugar ignite every synapse dulled by furnace fumes. Around you, folks tally gains versus taxes, some grinning, others muttering. Statistical love letters to probability. Overhead, saws dart, stitching invisible seams through hot air. A guard motions you aside, momentary panic, but he simply admires your amulet of river reeds. He confides he's lost 3 molars to date pits and wonders if the bracelet truly wards off toothache. You hand it over, swapping for a carved bone. Button in his pouch, barter improvisation blossoms. You feel oddly lighter, maybe because generosity, like gold, spins differently. You drift toward the veranda's carved balustrade to watch the queue shrink. The chess set rumor surfaces again, when an older trader waves an ivory bishop as collateral for future tax, claiming he'll redeem it next caravan season. The treasurer's brow furrows into Grand Canyon mode. Historians will one day analyze whether these on-the-spot pawns advance local microfinance or cluttered storage rooms. The bishop is accepted, though the assistant jots a note. Wingless. Camel must return. Bureaucrats and metaphors rarely mix smoothly back on the street. Breeze teases dust into spirals. You tuck the chit deep into your sash alongside the bone button, tiny gold shaving, and fig tree memory. Coins clink as you walk. The sound attracts entrepreneurial children hawking carved whistles. Baobab candy, even scorpion-tailed toothpicks, sharper than gossip. One girl crows. You buy 2, partly for novelty, partly because blade-like hygiene tools feel on brand. Passing the mosque wall, you spot donkey number 1, the ear-brushed diva lounging in shade. You present a palmful of millet as promised. It accepts, then promptly sneezes the kernels back in a confetti spray that glitters with stray dust. Divine retribution for your earlier tax jokes, perhaps? You wipe specks from your sleeve, half annoyed, half honored. Few humans receive donkey anointment impartially. Gold-infused snot-dot coins burning a hole in your consciousness. You detour to a vendor unfurling bolts of cloth. There, the legendary purple silk gleams almost black, deep as moonless midnight. Under sunlight, faint iridescence ripples. You barter 2 coins plus the bone button, and she throws in a length of dyed leather cord. Pair it with your minor. Chic. You imagine draping the silk tonight during the bright sunset songs, letting fabric billow like a portable eclipse dot as midday hammers downward. You slide into a shaded alley where families scrape rice into communal bowls. Someone ladles you a portion. You garnish it with a dab of honey borrowed from breakfast memories. Conversations bounce. Talk of a drought line creeping south, of distant battles you hope never reach here, and of a comet rumored to slice the sky next month. Historians still argue whether such celestial sightings spurred gold hoarding out of fear or generosity, but right now, nobody's saving coins jingle toward comfort food faster than a catfish flops toward meal finished. You lean back against a cool brick, eyes closing despite chatter. The porcelain of exhaustion cracks when a drummer's beat begins somewhere across the square, announcing upcoming midday courtyard chores. You stand, tug the silk bundle tighter, and set off. The tax board recedes behind you, but it's lattice work. Shadows still dance across your thoughts, each carved loop a reminder that wealth here is never static. It's weighed, shaved, taxed, sung about, and eventually spent on something as ephemeral as purple silk or as concrete as a new roof beam. Past the queue's tail, where latecomers shift nervously, one asks the guard how long the treasurer will stay. The guard shrugs. As long as gold flows or the sun sets, whichever quits first. With that philosophical shrug, you slip into the street's golden glare, ready for the next obligation courtyard. Chores and, if luck holds, a goat uprising encore, a hammering rhythm wooden pestles thudding into mortar guides. You back toward the central courtyard like a metronome made of calories. The sun lingers high, bleaching color from everything except your newly acquired swatch of purple silk, which you've knotted turban style to keep sweat from invading your eyebrows. It feels simultaneously regal and ridiculous. Joke number 1 arrives. On schedule, if fashion police patrolled medieval Mali, you'd be sentenced to 10 minutes hard modeling. You slip between women wielding pestles taller than they are. Each downward swing pops against polished millet grains, releasing a soft flowery plume that dusts the air with a nutty perfume. You grab an empty pestle lighter than it looks and fall into their cadence. Lift, drop, lift, drop. Shoulders protest, but the rhythm soon hypnotizes you into a working trance. Mainstream historical fact echoes with each thud. This communal pounding, often performed twice daily, turned pearl millet into phonio-fine meal across Sudano-Sahelian towns, fueling traders, scholars, and the occasional tax line daydreamer from sunrise to Sargaz. Toddler toddles past wearing nothing but a grin and a string of cowries. He skids in millet dust, giggles, then resumes supervising with the solemn intensity only toddlers manage. Above the mortar circle, a half-dozen straw canopies provide islands of shade. Beneath one, simmering clay pots emit competing aromas roasted. Groundnut, tamarind, and the unmistakable earth sweetness of baobab leaf sauce. You relinquish your pestle to a grateful auntie and shuffle over to kitchen allies. A stocky cook hands you a paddle the length of a canoe oar, instructing you to stir the ticketage peanut stew clockwise, counterclockwise, supposedly invites sand spirits that crave crunchy textures. Quirky fringe tidbit delivered. You comply, swirling the fixed sauce until concentric ripples reflect orange sunlight like a tiny sunset captured in lunch. Nearby, a girl fans charcoal under a flat griddle where thin millet crepes blister into golden moons. She flicks you a mischievous grin, sprinkles crushed hibiscus petals on one, and dares you to taste. The tart floral crunch pops like edible confetti kitchen innovation 14 centuries early. Your goat acquaintance selects that exact moment to recommence its bid for courtyard domination. It vaults a grain basket, lands atop a woodpile, and bleats a speech clearly plagiarized from yesterday's coup attempt. Spectators cheer. Apparently, performance repetition sells tickets. You wave the stirring paddle in mock defense. Joke number 2. Back, hooved usurper, I just paid taxes, I can't afford a regime change. The goat replies with a disdainful head. Toss, purple silk, obviously its next conquest. In all the commotion, you nearly scorched the peanut stew. The cook barks, water. So you dash to the communal jar, fill a calabash, and drizzle a thin stream that sizzles clouds of steam into your face. Instantly, your turban springs curls of vapor, giving you the look of a mystic on low boil. One onlooker mutters an impromptu blessing. You respond with a wink that says, totally planned special effects. Once crisis averted, the cook tosses in diced okra to thicken the stew. Historians still argue whether okra migrated here via trans-Saharan traders or floated up the Niger River aboard reed rafts laden with gourds, but every spoonful proves culinary debates taste delicious either way. She lets the pot burble while you pivot to grain flipping duty, two wide wooden trays piled with steaming cracked millet that must be aerated before clumping. Your wrists a flick, sending grains tumbling in midair like tawny snowflowers. Stray gulls swoop, realize it's not bread, and abort with dramatic indignation. A distant drumbeat signals the well runners arriving. Barrels slosh, water slaps sides, and kids form a bucket chain, chanting nonsense syllables that keep tempo. You steal a mugful. Copper tang mingles with faint donkey bucket memory, but hydration outranks gourmet snobbery. Sweat rivers down your spine, soaking the purple silk now mottled like tie-dye sunset. Consider it avant-garde dot over by the shade edge. Two elders argue chess strategy using pebbles and chicken bones. They pause to watch the goat leap again, this time targeting the millet drying mats. One elder clicks his tongue, predicts uprising. The other wagers 10 cowries that mat security will prevail. You wonder if the treasurer's missing rug could broker peace. Joke number 3 forms. A goat, a rook, and a donkey walk into a tax porch punchline. Pending archaeological discovery. Duty calls you fetch firewood, stacking split acacia logs by the cook pits. Splinters jab fingers, but the wood's resin scent almost compensates. Mainstream fact ripples back. Acacia charcoal, dense and slow burning, underpins Sahelian metallurgy, kitchen fires, and nighttime storytelling, making it perhaps history's least celebratory yet most indispensable tree. As stew nears completion, a final flourish remains. The cook produces a calabash of reddish paste canny pepper mash, fermented under sand for 7 suns. She dabs a line across your wrist, test of courage. Tongue meets pepper, mind meets horizon. Heat blooms behind your eyeballs, and you achieve temporary enlightenment. Unwide desert spirits crave crunch, their hunting relief. Tears spring, but you raise a thumb. Approval granted, she tips the rest into the pot, tinting stew a warm sunset hue. The pounding circle disbands. Bowls appear, carved from giant gourds, painted with indigo swirls. Everyone lines up, ladles clinking. You're handed a portion, fluffy millet bedded beneath peanut ochre velvet, crowned with a glistening red oil swirl. You settle cross-legged, sharing shade with the pottery repairman who's patching a cracked water jar using egg white glue, another unusual tidbit you store for future MacGyvering. Conversation ebbs around the circle. Someone recounts news of a distant city where musicians have supposedly invented a 3-stringed lute able to mimic bird calls exactly. Skeptics raise brows. Historians might one day argue whether avian duets improve diplomatic receptions or just annoyed insomniac donkeys. You chase stew with sips of tamarind water, savor brightness cutting through nutty depth. After eating, communal cleanup unfolds like choreographed dance. Bowls rinsed, mortar covered, ashes banked. You volunteer to chase the goat interloper out a side gate. It ambles just beyond reach, smirks, yes, goat smirk, then trots through. The opening as if exiting a royal audience. You bow sarcastically. Courtyard monarchy remains intact for now. With chores wrapped, your muscles hum a lullaby of satisfied ache. A breeze picks up, scattering millet husks into tiny whirlwinds. A woman nearby dips fingers into clay, flicks dots onto her cheeks and symmetrical constellations, a daily ritual said to honor ancestral stars. You dab your own cheek with a lone dot. Maybe tonight the rooftop sky will recognize you as kin. Courtyard gradually empties, people seeking nap-cool interiors before sunset bustle. You gather silk turban, now salt-crusted, and stroll toward your mud brick home. Donkey number 1 lounges out front, chewing cud thoughtfully as if reviewing the day's agenda. You give its ear a respectful brush. Insurance is insurance, and share. A leftover hibiscus crepe, the donkey munches, then dozes. Kingdom safe, spirits shoot, goat in exile, temporarily. Inside, walls radiate fading heat. Earthen jars below roof vents exhale cooler air. Early air conditioning courtesy of wise builders whose secrets you're still inhaling. You splash face and arms with scented water bouquet of crushed lemongrass and eucalyptus traded from savannah. Borders. The fragrance untangles courtyard clamor into a single silken thread leading toward evening. Quiet songs will spool soon, and your ears, brushed and blessed, cannot miss them. You lean against the doorway, eyes half closed, listening to the town breathe. Distant hammer on anvil, flutter of cloth drying, a child's half-giggle muffled by drowsy hush. Afternoon light tilts gold, a quieter cousin of furnace glow, and you allow yourself 10 heartbeats of stillness before answering the call of sunset strings. Yet even in repose you feel the kitchen paddle's weight ghosting your arm, taste pepper's spark haunting your lips, and hear rhythmic mortar beats reverberating under ribs like ancestral drums reminding you. Wealth isn't only dig in the ground shiny, it's shared meals, communal sweat, and an occasionally theatrical goat keeping everyone's reflexes sharp. Siesta shadows melt away and pull you back into motion, luring you toward work that never quite clocks out, patching the very bones of the town itself. You sling a wicker tray of mud mix onto your hip and step into an alley where walls glow caramel under low sun. Their surfaces cracked like old drumheads begging new skins. The scent here is oddly sweet earth after drizzle, though rain hasn't fallen in weeks. That perfume comes from the secret ingredient you're carrying, termite mound clay, rich with the insect's own saliva that acts as nature's superglue. Mainstream historical fact slipping between bricks, Sahelian masons have leaned on termite-processed soil since at least the Ghana Empire. Its enzymes hardening walls tough enough to shrug at monsoon tantrums and desert tantrums alike. A master. Mason named Boubacar greets you, beard dusted flour white from lime powder. He squints at your salt-flecked purple turban, arches a brow, then hands you a wooden paddle, not unlike the one you wielded in the stew. Except this one stirs gossip instead of peanuts. Your task: replaster a south-facing facade before cracks. Invite sand, or worse, scorpions looking for rent-free lofts. You scoop a handful of mixed laterite dust, sandy loam, water, and termite clay, then slap it against the wall with a wet thwap. That feels halfway between pottery class and percussion practice. Boubacar hums approval while you smooth edges with confident swipes. The hum morphs into village rumor. Apparently, the goat monarch attempted a daring dawn raid on the fig tree tally marks, wanted to etch its own dynasty. He chuckles. Joke number 1 springs from your lips. Great, next season. We'll pay goat tax and cud. Laughter echoes in the narrow lane, bouncing off walls thick enough to shelter the sound for a second encore dot between spreads of mortar. You pause to study the existing adobe. Pigments swirl where older layers bleed through, ochre streaks, charcoal, under sketches, even faint indigo fingerprints left by some artistic prankster. Boubacar points to a set of concentric circles and murmurs about evil eye wards. Quirky fringe tidbit alert. Some homeowners here finish fresh plaster with a wash made from fermented goat milk mixed with crushed malachite, believing the green sheen dazzles malevolent spirits into looking elsewhere. You glance at your donkey ear, charm amused that livestock earn their keep in surprising ways. The sun dips lower. Breeze snakes through alley vents, cooling sweat before it pools. As you work, conversation slides from goat politics to architecture philosophy. Historians still argue whether West Africa's signature, mud brick buttresses, evolved purely for structural support or doubled as status symbols. Boubacar leans toward the latter, insisting if you stack mud high enough, someone will call it art. He demonstrates by sculpting a playful ridge resembling a camel's hump along the corner seam, adding flair plus bragging rights. Your paddle finds a stubborn crack, wide as a thumbnail, leading straight into the living room of a family, napping inside. Through it wafts the faint snore of an elder and the sweet tang of dried mango. You pack the gap gently, imagining dreams on the other side, rewiring themselves around your thumps. Joke number 2 pops. Apologies, just renovating your rain cycle. A teenage voice answers from within, half asleep but quick. Paint it lavender then. Everyone's a critic, work rhythm establishes. Scoop, slap, smooth, gossip. At one break, Boubacar unrolls a palm leaf scroll of pigment recipes, charred deep pits for black, crushed blossom for yellow, and confides he's considering a mural of Mansa Musa dishing gold pellets to laughing children. Good PR, you nod, remembering the porch tax line's mood swings. He invites you to outline stars once plaster sets. Your fig tree dot qualifies you as emerging artist apparently, with the wall's skin mostly healed. Attention turns to the roofline. Wooden Torin beams jet like perches for imaginary birds. Some wobble after years of sun gnaw. You brace a ladder, crudely notched from baobab limbs, and climb until town sounds diffuse into broad hush. Up here, rooftops unfold mosaic-like, earthen squares, reed thatch lumps, and the occasional bold spot of glazed tile a merchant flaunted after a lucky caravan haul. Far off, minaret silhouettes slice orange sky. Call to prayer will slide from them soon like silk unraveling. You wiggle a loose torn-free termites hollowed it into a flute. Blowing one end releases a low hoot that startles a passing swallow. You almost keep it as an avant-garde instrument, but sensibility wins, and you swap in a fresh beam. Securing it with rope of braided doom palm fiber, you ponder how architecture. Here's collaborative across species, termite salivary enzymes, palm frond strands, human sweat, plus the occasional goat milk sealant brewing in pottery jars. Someone should invite the Huron to contribute. Maybe judgment could be a structural component. From your perch, you spy the donkey lounging in late light, ears twitching exactly where you brushed them this morning, a living lightning rod for superstition. You vow to refresh that brushing yet. Next new moon, just in case. A call rise, muezzin voice rolling like velvet thunder, and residents ripple toward ablutions. You descend, hands streaked ochre. At the base, Boubacar offers a gourd of cool baobab fruit drink. Pulp bits float, like tiny moons. You gulp appreciative. Mainstream fact leaps out with the pulp. Baobab's vitamin-rich powder traveled medieval trade circuits almost as eagerly as gold, prized both for health and as thickener in stews from Tao to Gadames. Your muscles savor the tiny burst, imagining. Scurvy fleeing and panic dot cleanup begins. Leftover mortar gets molded into small bricks to sun-dry overnight. One child shapes hers into a tiny goat wearing a crown callback accepted. Another molds a crooked rook. Maybe that treasurer's chess set will finally recruit replacements. Joke number 3 surfaces. If those pieces dry hard enough, tomorrow's tax line could end in checkmate. Laughter floats above cooling walls, mingling with the first cricket chirps. Boubacar pats the fresh plaster, satisfied. He scratches a tiny spiral into the corner signature hidden in plain sight, and hands you the stylus to carve yours. You etch a modest crescent next to his spiral, deciding the curve honors both Gulpur crescents and the moonlit ventilation shafts that saved your lungs. Underground dot, evening settles. Walls reflect dusk like warm bronze, and your repairs almost vanish, blending into centuries of layered stories. A mason's job, you realize, is less about permanence than conversation. Each layer answers cracks left by yesterday while whispering to tomorrow's hands. Your turn. You shoulder empty trays, bid Boubacar farewell, and stroll through alleys where fresh plaster exhales cool, damp earth, a lullaby scent promising structural dreams. The goat crosses your path, judges your handiwork with a bleat of suspicious approval, then wanders on, campaign apparently paused. Moonrise will bring griot melodies. For now, You bask in silent achievement as fireflies ignite along wall creases, imitating sparks from last night's furnace, but cooler. Gentler, more patient, home awaits, but pause first. You press a palm. Flat against the wall you fixed. The surface is smooth, resilient, faintly trembling with stored daylight. You feel your heartbeat sinking with mud, termite, pigment, and gossip. And somewhere inside that blend your own story finds a seat reserved, annotated in purple silk and donkey sneezes. The town may fade someday, historians will debate what toppled it, but for tonight, its ribs hold firm, and that firmness carries your fingerprints. Sleep barely finishes. Its sentence before the ground outside your doorway begins to thrum a deep percussion that rattles jug lids and persuades the donkey to relocate its nap to underneath your bed platform. You sit up, half-dreamed stories still tangled in your hair, and catch the unmistakable clink-clank of bronze bells slapping camel chests. Caravan day just crash-landed, and punctuality, it seems, is measured in hoofbeats rather than hourglasses. You yank on yesterday's leggings, rewrap the purple silk now promoted from turban to dramatic shoulder cape, and step into dawn's. Apricot light dot, the first thing you see is a horizon stitched with silhouettes, tall, slow-swaying humps crowned by bundles and bearded riders. Each camel sports a necklace of cowries and cracked seashells, ancient ocean swag flexing. 1,000 kilometers from the nearest wave. Joke number 1 surfs in. Nice to meet the original four-wheel drive. No upgrade needed since 3000 BCE. A boy scampers. Ahead scattering date pits, so the lead dromedary won't step on loose cobbles. He claims the creature believes each pit is a scorpion lying in wait, quirky fringe tidbit, filed for future trivia nights. Traders dismount, joints popping like peppercorns. Dust cloaks are flapped, releasing plumes that shimmer pink gold in the rising sun. For a heartbeat, the air looks like last night's furnace had an early morning sneeze. A lanky captain named Merritt calls greetings, eyes dancing the way scales did on the treasurer's porch. You help untie cargo nets, palms grazing woven goat hair ropes, still cool from desert night. Outslide glistening salt slabs, each one the size of a bakery doorstop and stamped with symbols from the Tagaza mines far to the northwest. Mainstream historical fact glints right there. Salt could fetch its weight in gold along this route, a reality that once made entire Sahel towns measure worth in saline. Bricks rather than shiny metal dot, next come bolts of cloth, some blinding white. Egyptian linen, others turquoise-striped caton, rumored to absorb sweat, so efficiently wearers feel kissed by clouds. You spot a remnant roll of that deep ink at midnight, indigo favored by Tuareg elites. Silently vow to barter hard before the minting cheats show up in Section 9. Beneath, the fabrics lie pottery crocks, swaddled in straw. One trader lifts a lid, unveiling glossy crimson powder, ground carmine beetle dye. He winks, claims it's worth more than the silk on your shoulders when sold in Venice. Historians still argue whether West African caravans regularly funneled such exotic dyes north, or if this was entrepreneurial freelancing. Either way, those beetles died for flamboyant sleeves across continents. Camels kneel, issuing the classic guttural complaints that sound like trombones gargling porridge. As you loosen a girth strap, a pouch of glass beads bursts, scattering spheres the color of sunrise yolk. The donkey, ever opportunistic, tries to hoover them up. You swoop in, saving trade from equine digestion and earning Merritt's grin. He rewards you with a fist-sized lump of crystalline rock salt flecked with hematite sparkles, a mini planet in your palm. You tuck it beside the bone button. Your sash now jingles like a portable geology lesson. Crowds gather fast kid's eye. Caramel brown camels. Elders sniff spice baskets, exhaling cinnamon, cumin, and the sweet medicinal reek of myrrh. A woman plucks strands of saffron the way you once separated mica from gold dust. She sighs reverently. That tiny bundle can perfume an entire wedding feast. Joke number 2, whispers. Saffron is basically edible BLING.MARID, unfurls a leather ledger painted with symbols rather than script clever code so bandits can't read inventories. He marks arrivals with a stylus dipped in soot mixed gum Arabic, the ink drying glossy. You scan the list. Among familiar items, one line reads, 13 jars whispers. You arch your brow. He explains in hushed tones. Jars contain palm leaf manuscripts. Poetry too scandalous for Timbuktu censors. Evidently bored scholars trade gold for gossip, same as housewives. Quirky indeed. You escort the caravanners to the communal square, repurposed as temporary souk. Everyone claims a patch of ground, and you help hammer iron pegs to tie restive animals. A camel nips at your sleeve, confusing purple fabric for violet thistles. You flick its nose gently and recall the termite clay wall. Everything here eventually tests. Your craftsmanship. Water buckets arrive. Each camel guzzles 15 liters in sarcastic slow motion. The Huron from River Duty lands atop a tent pole, glaring at ungainly beasts hogging its fishing hole's export. You wave. Bird ignores you. Clearly Team Salt over Team Silk. MARID produces. A conch shell horn blows a resonant moan, announcing barter season open. Stalls blossom instantly. Wooden crates, turntables, awnings of patchwork sailcloth, a sword balanced atop 3 amphorae for dramatic flair. You volunteer to stack salt planks into glistening walls. Handling them leaches moisture from your fingertips, leaving prints dry as aged papyrus. Yet the scent-sharp mineral, almost metallic, reminds you of furnace slag and taxport tension. Everything here braided by elements. Mid-morning heat blooms. Traders unwrap dates stuffed with almond and candied ginger, offering samples to lure customers. You taste one molten sugar, desert sun distilled into chewable lightning. Joke number 3. Emerges sticky. Need a loan shark? Just hand him these. Teeth collateral guaranteed. Between sales, Murray divulges root news. A new well on the Azalea Trail yields sweeter water than legend so sweet. Some camels refuse brackish alternatives now. Staging sit-downs until served premium. Supply chain nightmares existed even before spreadsheets. He also whispers rumors of a rival town where counterfeit weights undertax dust shipments, bleeding the Sultan's purse. The treasurer might dispatch inspectors soon. Better have scales polished and nerves steady. You envision Section 9's agenda sharpening like a smith's whetstone, a bustle behind 2 goats. Yes, likely yours truly's insurgents, slip among salt walls, licking edges greedily. Salt blow can fell even stubborn hooves, so you and a laughing child herd them out, tempting with hibiscus crepe crumbs. Crisis diffused, though one goat leaves a damp autograph on a linen bale. You hope laundry fees aren't weight dash based. Noon tips overhead. Murid gestures to a mound of fragrant resin pebbles, frankincense from Somali boards. He proposes a trade. Your crystal salt gift returned plus 1 gold shaving from Furnace Night for a pouch of incense and 3 strings of glass beads. You weigh nostalgia against novelty, recall the donkey's near snafu with beads, and accept. Business done, he secures the gold speck in a tiny lidded calabash, already echoing with riches. Throughout the day, scholars drift through sniffing for those secret poetry jars. One, draped in parchment-colored robes, slides you a scrap featuring a line about lip prints of sunrise on a salt lick. You pocket it, planning to quote it to tonight's griot like accidental lyric inspiration. Historians may one day argue whether grassroots poetry shaped oral epics or vice versa. You're merely delighted to feed future debates one stolen metaphor. At a time. As afternoon leans toward amber, camels settle, legs folded like origami. Content after feedback stuffed with crushed date pits, soaked in goat milk. The goats protest, no consent forms. Traders sprawl on rugs, sipping mint-steeped green tea frothed into 3 ritual rounds. Bitter, sweet, sweeter. You join, savoring the final glass, so syrupy it could pass for liquid jewel. Sugar rush lifts eyelids tired from dawn. You feel ready for the scale game's looming sun dips, igniting salt walls into pearl lanterns. Merit packs remaining beads while humming a tune that syncs with pestle rhythms from distant kitchens. Callbacks swirl, termite clay tang, donkey ear insurance, furnace. Sparks threads weaving a fabric as mottled as your cape. You thank him, promise to revisit before caravan's fortnight departure, and pocket a final trinket, a tiny cowrie carved into a laughing camel, to remember the day jangling traders unpacked not just goods, but scandalous news, dubious poetry, and enough salt to season an empire's appetite. Morning finds you elbow deep in the town's little mint house, a cramped shed tacked onto the tax porch like an afterthought or a guilty conscience. The walls bristle with hanging brass weights shaped as turtles, scorpions, miniature mosque. Towers, everyone promises honest measure while winking blatantly. A dozen traders jostle inside, palms itching with dust-filled pouches, and the air buzzes the way beehives would if bees suddenly discovered interest rates. You take a number wooden token carved as a fish, then shuffle toward the longest counter where 2 balanced scales teeter on knife-edge fulcrums, polished smoother than a politician's speech. Right away you clock 3 problem. Children, a crooked beam whose pointer never quite centers, a weight that looks suspiciously hollow, and a clerk whose grin is all incisors. No molars apparently, he's traded teeth for tips. Joke number 1 hitches a ride on your breath. Nice to see gravity given options this season. The clerk snorts but gestures you forward, waving the next customer, a salt merchant whose lips glitter with stray crystals into the danger zone. Mainstream historical fact clanks into view as the merchant dumps gold dust, Sahel towns kept. No coinage until much later, so every transaction hinged on scales, standardized mickle weights, and a mutual fear of getting fleeced faster than a spring sheep. The clerk lines bronze mickles across the pan, but the beam stays stubbornly bowed. He taps the pivot. Nothing. He coughs theatrically code for add a pinch more. The merchant glares, knowing full well that pivot screw has a hairline file. Mark letting the clerk skew torque at will. Welcome to wait-gate. Your turn. You present last night's tidily tied wax packet, flip the wrapper open, and let dust trickle like champagne bubbles onto the brass dish. A hush falls. Everyone loves watching gold pour. It's the only SMR in town that might finance dinner. The clerk reaches for a scorpion-shaped weight. You raise a finger. The turtle, please. The scorpion is rumored to be light by a breath. The turtle, heavy by the same. He shrugs, swaps figurines, and suddenly the beam wobbles toward fairness. Quirky fringe tidbit surfaces like an eel. Some locals swear rubbing a drop of date syrup on the weight makes gold cling electro-magically, pinching extra specks when lifted. You've never seen proof, but you catch the clerk discreetly licking his thumb. You silently append a pinch of coarse river sand onto the counter harmless, yet the grains threaten to jam his sticky plan. He blinks, recalculates odds, and decides. Honesty is cheaper than dental work. Behind you, a pickpocket stages the cough. It's a classic. Loud, hacking fit to mask a clink of coins lifted from distracted belts. You pivot just as his fingers graze your sash. The salt crystal planet you got from Murid swings like a tiny meteor into his knuckles. He yelps, drops your pouch, and scurries off nursing what will surely become a galaxy-shaped bruise. Choke number 2 low. Volume, maximum sting. Should have weighed the risks first. Transaction resumes. The beam balances true. The clerk scoops the tax commission for mint upkeep. A shaved sliver nobody dares protest because, honestly, someone has to polish. All those ornamental scorpions? He then presses your dust into a mold, tops it with a clay plug, and sets it in a charcoal brazier where the grains fuse into pebble-sized pellets, easier to transport, harder to tamper with. You mourn a moment. Molten gold always reminds you of furnace night, but this time heat feels bureaucratic, not heroic. While pellets cool, a fiery debate sparks near the doorway. Two scholars argue external influence versus homegrown genius. Did these intricate weights descend from Maghribi prototypes, or blossom locally alongside termite clay masonry and donkey or mysticism? Historians still argue whether trans-Saharan traders imported metrology standards wholesale or merely inspired regional improvisations that outsmarted the originals. The clerk, overhearing, taps the turtle weight affectionately and mutters, "Don't care. Pays my supper either way." You pocket your fresh pellets legal tender stamped with a crescent crest, then linger to watch the next contestant, a nervous youngster carrying a nugget the size of a robin's egg. He places it beam tips, but before the clerk can reach. For weights, the donkey pokes its head through the door. Perhaps drawn by memory of Goldsmith's confetti, it sniffs the scale, exhaling a blast of hay breath across the pans. The beam quivers, nugget rolls off, chaos ensues. Everyone leaps as if scorpion weights suddenly came alive. Joke number 3 practically writes itself, introducing the newest calibration tool model, EAW air-assisted wind. The clerk shoes donkey with curses mild enough for a prayer mat. You grab the beast's bridle, steer it outside, and scratch its magical ear to reset spiritual Wi-Fi. Crisis over, but inside voices rise, traders demanding donkey-proof doors. Scholars noting animal interference could explain medieval account book discrepancies. You suggest a compromise, forge a donkey-shaped, weight-hefty, impossible to fake, and symbolically fitting. Laughter cracks the tension. Even incisor clerk bears gums and something like respect. Back in the sun, the square flashes with late-day commerce. You head for a spice stall to celebrate legitimate wealth, but a familiar grin intercepts you, Merid, clutching a strip of counterfeit linen painted with shimmer to mimic fine silk. He wants your opinion. You weigh the cloth, literally between fingers, and spot minuscule flecks of mica where true dye would sit. "Nice try," you whisper. He laughs, admits he plans to sell it miles away as desert blessing cloth. You shake your head. Morality can't outrun caravans, but it can hitchhike on warnings. You advise at least keep the mica. If the buyer complains, blame the stars. Tea time beckons. A brazier steams green leaves until aroma cuts through. Dust like fresh sarcasm. You sip, and the day tastes of pepper, fraud, adrenaline, and small victories. The market hums, but now you hear layers. Honest haggles ring bright, scams clink off key, and in between the steady scratch of scribes updating weight ledgers. All part of the same symphony, tuned by gravity and greed. You pass the treasurers. Porch. He sits outside today, basking like a lizard, ivory rook spinning between fingers. He lifts it in salute to your jingling pellets. Maybe tomorrow he'll need new pieces carved if those clay rook replacements from the kids dry well. For tonight, though, your gold is measured, minted, and legitimately yours freedom with a stamped crescent. Sunset ignites rooftops. You thread alleys homeward, pockets heavier, conscience mostly light. The donkey trails behind, chewing on the counterfeit linen quality control, perhaps. Wind carries furnace memories, termite clay scents, and caravan bells toward the gray gathering fire already crackling at square's edge. Your day began in the jaws of rigged scales and ends with balanced steps across cooling earth. Not bad. For 30 grams of stubborn honesty, morning haze still yawns over the square when you glide back. Pouch of yesterday's bead and incense winnings itching to become lunch money. Everyone's already jockeying for prime bartering territory around the minting table. A low, Sun-bleached plank balanced on amphor shards where fortunes either grow or evaporate in the blink of a crooked scale. You plant yourself at one corner, pulse steady but palm sweaty, because gold dust dealings make even seasoned miners feel like they're placing bets against gravity. Not far off, the donkey executes a heroic tail swish at a fly, as if wishing you luck with the same appendage. It used to baptize you in glittery sneeze. The table's centerpiece is a brass, balance hanging from a tripod carved with spirals and the faint outline of a fish. Perhaps the confused tourists from mine graffiti finally evolved. A necklace of standardized weights dangles nearby, chunky mitkels, half mitkels, and a handful of wafer-thin dirham slivers. Mainstream historical fact materializes beside the brass. By the late 14th century, towns like this often used imported Fatimid or Almoravid weight sets, ensuring your dust could buy silk in Sechil Masa without a translator number, speak fluent Greek. Naturally, where legitimate weights go, crooked cousins follow. You spot a sly trader palming a weight whose rim looks suspiciously shaved. Joke number 1 taps your shoulder. Some people go on diets. His mitcol went involuntarily low-carb. He coughs theatrically classic thief move from the rumor mill, trying to mask the clink of concealed nuggets tucked in a sleeve. 2 skinny accomplices echo the cough a beat later. Must be rehearsing the symphony in TB minor. Your turn at the scale. You pour a narrow ribbon of dust into the brass pan. Flecks glint like micrometeors ready for re-entry. The official weigher eyes, as hawk-sharp as the treasurer's, but with a mustache resembling 2 arguing caterpillars, places a 2 mitkol weight opposite. Beam seesaws, then dips your side. Fair. He adds a half mitkol wafer. Beam levels, you exhale. Just then, a cough chorus erupts. The mustache twitches. In that micro-flinch, the shaved weight is swapped in. Beam tilts his side, proving you owe more dust. Quirky fringe tidbit floats up from memory. Some towns combat cheating with blessing rituals, sprinkling mint water on scales, so dishonest hands supposedly stick and reveal themselves. Lacking mint, you deploy improvisation. You produce the cowrie carved into a laughing camel and place it on the table, announcing loudly, "My camel witnesses." Superstitious gasps ripple. The accomplices freeze, sure you've invoked some Eastern curse. While they stiffen, you flick an unnoticed pebble off the genuine weights. Stacked mustache man sees the edge gouge. Realization dawns, and he snaps up the counterfeit. Cheaters retreat, hacking harder, this time from embarrassment. Choke number 2. You stage whisper, better get that cough weighed. Seems light on honesty. Transaction resumes. You collect a neat stack of coin-like discs, locally cast Bonda tokens, each stamped with a stylized lion. The Mitmaster insists on a 2 dust surcharge for feline majesty. Historians still argue whether these symbols denoted actual governmental backing or were simply decorative bravado. Either way, lion faces buy bread. Sale finished, you linger to watch the Mitmaster strike new Bonda. He sets a red-hot blank on an anvil, thwacks it with an engraved die, and the lion roars into being. Sparks spit onto your purple cape. You pack them out before fashion becomes flambe. The Mintmaster grins, reveals another anti-cheat secret. A sliver of desert glass hidden in the die alignment. Only genuine dies leave that microscopic sunburst in a lion's eye. Counterfeiters rarely own magnifying lenses, so they miss it. Mainstream fact addendum. Obsidian scrapers and quartz offcuts served as proto-assay tools long before European mints adopted microscopes. A runner from the treasurer trots up, auditing at random. You pass, courtesy of honest weights, camel mojo, and maybe llama-shaped luck. Your carving species lineage feels fluid. The runner confiscates the shaved mitkol, snapping it in half to mark it dead. Tiny gold slivers spill, confirming sabotage. Crowd murmurs. Debate breaks out. Historians will later argue whether weight tampering was rampant systemic rot or isolated entrepreneurial spirit. Today's consensus seems to be rot but creative. With fresh tokens jingling, you pivot to linen seller Fatuma, aiming to upgrade your salt-perfumed leggings. She eyes the honest trade lion discs, strokes the silk cape, now etched with soot freckles, and offers a bolt of airy cotton plus a bottle of poppy seed oil in exchange for 3 coins. You haggle gently, invoking the Huron's fashion sense. Even judgmental birds approve indigo. She laughs, drops the price by a half mickel's value, and tosses in a sachet of dried lavender for donkey stables, aromatherapy for beasts, and their landlords. Joke number 3. You promise the donkey will write a 5-star review and braise. Silver-tongued cheats aren't done. One approaches with a miniature hand scale hung from 2 raven feathers, claims it's more sensitive than brass. He offers to verify your new coins. You counter by placing your crystal salt globe on the scale. Needle swings wildly, exposing Raven Feather Man's flimsy act. He slinks off, feathers drooping like wet scrolls. Bystanders cheer. Spontaneous marketplace theater is free, after all. He climbs. The Mintmaster's assistant uses a melon rind as makeshift fan, blowing smithy fumes eastward where the goat rebellion regroups. You pocket cotton and oil, leaving the square just as 2 guards drag in another scam artist. This one hollowed bronze weights and filled them with beeswax, hoping desert heat wouldn't give him away. Unfortunately, today is a furnace on holiday. Beeswax melts, incriminating drips on his sandals. Another weight dies, another micro-sunburst eye saves the day. Leaving the clamor, you pass the Huron stalking near the river channel carved to cool minting dyes. It glances at your pouch, perhaps judging coin clinks as flashy splashes. You bow ironically, then head for the mosque's shade pockets heavier than dawn, morality intact, ego pleasantly inflated. The donkey ambles alongside, lavender sachet, dangling from its bridle like high-class potpourri. Even goats pause to sniff. You reflect on the morning's lesson. Gold may be shy in creeks and fickle in furnaces, but once on a scale, it becomes downright paranoid, attracting every con in a 100-mile radius. Luckily, superstition, quick eyes, and a laughing camel carve can tip beams back to even. As you tuck the fair-measured bonda into a slit inside, your leggings, secret pocket courtesy of termite clay mason hex, you hear distant drumming. Sunset griot time looms, and you've earned front row status with legitimately weighted pockets to tip. Sunset pours itself across the rooftops like molten apricot, and the day exhales a warm sigh that smells of charcoal, lavender donkey, and fresh coin. You follow the lazy hum of a single chorus string plucked in mid-tune, winding through narrow alleys until the sky opens above the great acacia in the central square. Lanterns already dangle from its branches, each one a clay jar punched with star patterns. Wind teases the flames, so constellations shimmy over the crowd. You drop onto a reed mat still lukewarm from daylight and stretch legs tingling after their duel with cooked scales. Your purple cape doubles as cushion, soot freckles sparkling under the lantern glow like you planned the design. Joke number 1 drifts to your lips. If the fashion police look up, they'll ticket the sky for stealing my sparkle. On a low dais sits the griot Gibroline, eyes bright, fingers orbiting a 21-string kora whose gored body gleams with inlaid cowries. A drummer to his left taps a talking drum tucked in his armpit, stretching the hide with deft pressure so the rhythm bends like speech. Gibro clears his throat, swirls a sip of sour hibiscus in his mouth, then begins weaving sound and story. In the same breath, no formal hello, just an immediate plunge into mythic undertow. Mainstream historical fact drifts on that first verse. Griots across the Mali heartlands carry genealogies of noble families in their heads, safeguarding lineage, treaties, and land rights long before ink became standard, earning them status somewhere between public record office and Spotify playlist. Jibril's voice hits a gravelly register that could sand timber. Rumor claims. He deepens it by rolling a tiny iron bead under his tongue before performances. Quirky fringe tidbit noted. You glance at his cheeks for suspicious bulges and swear you catch metallic glint when he smiles. His opening tale rides. The cadence of the talking drum. The founding of Wagadu, a sorcerer fish that became a queen. And a river that turned itself to gold dust after hearing her sing. The Huron from River Duty flaps onto a lantern hook above front row perch and tilts its head, either enraptured or proofreading for avian accuracy. Jibril sees the bird, improvises a stanza about feathered witnesses who certify truth. The crowd laughs, grateful to have auditor wings instead of government ones for a change. You fish a lion-stamped bonda from your secret pocket, rub its ridged edge until the coin warms, waiting for the right narrative gap. Protocol says tips should punctuate, not interrupt the rhythm. Jibril segues into the tale of Sundiata's exile, bracketing each episode with a quick Kora flourish. At the moment Sundiata's mother prays beneath a baobab, audience hushes in collective gooseflesh. You flick the coin so it arcs through lantern light. It lands with a bright ding in the calabash at Jibril's feet. Without missing a chord, he pirates your name into the next line. And brave Tungju, watcher of crooked scales, who snared false weights with a camel's laugh. The crowd swivels, grinning, and for 5 glorious seconds, you're canonized by communal memory. Your donkey brays from somewhere offstage, perhaps desiring a cameo too. Historians still argue whether griots improvised entire epics on the fly or rehearsed skeletal frameworks days in advance. Watching Jibril juggle names, goats, and governance failures mid-verse, you lean towards, yes, and also witchcraft. He rolls into a fresh anecdote stirring a rebellious goat that tried to claim the Sundiata throne. Everyone clocks the reference. Applause bursts like popcorn. The goat monarch itself saunters near the map perimeter, chin elevated, chewing invisible laurels. Drum tempo shifts deeper, slower, cueing a heroic migration saga. Jibril paints caravans riddled with sandstorms, so thick travelers tied themselves. Together with donkey tail ropes, which explains, he puns, why donkeys today feel entitled to untie knots. Chuckles ripple. Joke number 2, you whisper to your neighbor, that knot must have come loose on mine. It now unties wallets. She snorts tamarind soda through her nose. Grateful darkness hides the spray. Between verses, incense braids of frankincense. Purchased with your former salt planet, coil upward, giving the square a dreamlike filter. Sparks fired from the mint earlier now echo in the griot's tale as heavenly stones raining blessings. Even mundane details transmute under Jibril's tongue. His Coraline spirals into minor key time for moral reflection. He sings of honor and trade, slipping in the beeswax weight scandal from this morning as cautionary fable. Thief melts, truth hardens. A boy sitting atop his father's shoulders asks loudly, did the bees get their wax back? Laughter erupts. Jibril answers mid-lyric, promising the bees were compensated in endless blossoms. Lantern glow deepens to ember orange. Jibril pivots to praise songs, naming elders, millers, even Boubacar the mason, applauding termite architecture. When he circles to you again, he nods toward your soot-dappled cape, weaving a fresh line. Their cloak, specked like night sky after. Smithy's side reminds us even ash can masquerade as stars. You decide that might be your new resume headline. He pauses for water. In the hush, a second performer, a contingo player, takes over, strumming a cheeky interlude about market flirtations. She slaps the strings so they zing like playful insults. Coins fly her way too, accompanied by theatrical. Goat bleats, the animal now all in as hype goat. Joke number 3 lands when she croons, buy my bracelets, avoid heartbreak. And you shout back, do they come with a warranty against hoof prints? Roars of laughter. She blows a kiss, meaning you owe her a coin later. Business never sleeps. Jibril returns for finale, a prophecy of desert stars aligning, guiding tomorrow's miners to veins richer than today's doubts. He threads in subtle caution that wealth must circulate like blood, or the town will wither. Into the dust that births it, audience falls silent, absorbing the echo of responsibility. Somewhere in the middle distance, a smith quenches metal, his paralleling Jibril's whispered last word, remember. The chord hangs, lanterns flicker, and applause rises. Palms, drums, goat hooves on packed earth, even a dignified Huron clap. Okay, wing shuffle. Jibril bow smiles, sweeping coins into a hide pouch. He lifts the laughing camel cowrie you placed earlier on the table, tucks it atop his strings as pick guardian. For honest measures, he declares. Your chest warms like sunset didn't leave after all. Crowd disperses slowly, half dazed. You remain seated, letting vibrations settle in marrow. The donkey wanders over, lavender sachet still aromatic, and nuzzles your shoulder in what you decide is a standing ovation. You scratch its brushed ear insurance, squared then rise, joints creaking a minor chord of their own. Night market lanterns ignite one by one along adjoining alleys, promising sizzling ticket edge and philosophers with questionable credentials. You pocket another coin for snacks, but hold the rest, some for roof repairs, some for tomorrow's hush of the creek dot as you step off the mat. Jibril calls after you, gifting a line meant for pillow reflection. Guard your scales and your stories. Both can tip an empire. You nod, letting the phrase loop like a lullaby while you stroll toward oil-scented air that could fry worries crispy. Stars inch overhead, ready to resurrect every lyric you just lived. The goat bleats a final encore. The Huron flaps away to file editorial notes. And the night unlocks. Its next chapter with a chorus lingering hum still twining your heartbeat. Night market chatter fades. As you angle toward the looming silhouette of the town's grand mud brick mosque, its torn beams jutting like giant toothpicks left by an absent-minded titan. Lanterns flicker at its base, painting ripples of gold across walls the color of roasted peanuts. You slip off sandals and feel packed earth cool beneath your soles, dust grains slotting between toes like souvenir pebbles. A stone basin waits in half shadow, time for ablutions. You dip hands, swirl away grit, then pour a thin stream over, feet still aching from scale-side duels and goat-herding heroics. The water answers with a soft hiss, your solace apparently auditioning for distant thunder. Joke number one murmurs in your brain. If footwear were tax-deductible, your toes could claim emotional damages. You join a queue edging toward the mosque's side arch where lamps release lazy moths into night air. A boy ahead of you practices exaggerated, thous turning each movement into dance. His mother clucks but smiles. Inside, the prayer hall breathes cool darkness. Palm trunk columns rise like forest trunks, lit by candle halos that flicker just enough to make shadows sway. Above, the high ceiling disappears into gloom pierced by one thin slit of moonlight there. Tiny shapes whirl. Yep, the resident bats have clocked in for their shift. They squeak, trading what you imagine are workplace grievances. Quirky fringe tidbit slides in. Local legend claims mosque bats keep tally of prayers. If they screech twice during prostration, it counts as double. Credit a cosmic coupon nobody can verify, lines form. You settle shoulder to shoulder with neighbors. The linen seller Fatuma, Boubacar still dusted in termite clay freckles, and a trader whose salt-cracked lips whisper verses like promises. The imam's voice rises, smooth as river stones, and the room folds into synchronized movement, standing, bowing, kneeling. Each posture loosens knots tied by camel ropes and smithy smoke. Mainstream historical fact glows behind your eyelids. Sudano-Sahelian mosques like this one, built from adobe and timber, date to at least the 13th century and served not only as spiritual anchors but also as community banks, lecture halls, and sometimes emergency granaries in famine years. Mid-purr, a bat flutters low, skimming so close you feel a whisper of wind against your cheek. For a split second, your concentration wobbles. Joke number 2 thrums. Even the bats are checking my Form 5-star surveillance. You stifle a grin, realign focus, and finish the final prostration with extra intention just in case cosmic coupons do exist. The imam concludes. Soft amen ripples outward. People linger, trading hushed greetings. You move to a side niche, under a small window where moonlight pools like spilled milk. Cool air drifts through, scented faintly with myrrh from caravan jars. You realize incense coils left from Gry at night are still smoldering somewhere outside. Taduma offers you a date stuffed with sesame. You trade her a pinch of frankincense, resin, promising it cures fabric market haggling fatigue. She laughs, pockets the gift, while tying sandals. You glance up. Bats line the rafters now, tiny silhouettes huddled like ink blots. One drops a quick zip across the hall, then returns, landing upside down beside a neighbor. You wonder aloud if they hold nightly councils. Bubakar, overhearing, nods gravely. They plot ceiling renovations. We'll get invoices any day. Historians still argue whether bat colonies in Sahelian mosques were tolerated for insect control or revered as symbolic guardians. Either way, you're fine paying rent and mosquitoes dot outside in the courtyard. The imam's assistant arranges oil lamps. Their flames bounce across mud walls, spotlighting torn beams now casting jagged shadows that resemble prehistoric beasts frozen. Mid-pounce. A child points, squeals that one beam looks like the Goat King. Collective laughter softens twilight's chill. You recall Bubakar's camel hump flourish in section 7 and decide architecture and animals have an ongoing cameo rivalry. Your donkey picks that moment to amble over, lavender sachet still swinging like a censer. It sniffs a torch, recoils, then kneels, some instinctual respect for holy ground, or maybe just craving a sit-down after stabling fame. You drift toward a side arcade, where students from the madrasa debate geometry problems scratched into smooth clay tablets. One sketches a triangle, asking if angles scale like caravan prices. Another counters with circle metaphors so eloquent that even the bats pause mid-chirp. Joke number 3 surfaces. You suggest adding goat trajectories to their equation's unpredictability. Coefficient guaranteed to break any compass. Laughter echoes. The eldest nods sagely, promising to publish the goat theorem soon. A respectful hush falls when the imam reemerges carrying a small wooden chest. He opens it to reveal palm leaf pages translations of those Greek medical scrolls rumored at the furnace. Tonight, he announces, they will copy diagrams of spleens, hopefully right side up this time. Volunteers gather. You watch quills flicker under lamplight. Scholars will later debate whether such cross-continental manuscripts truly shaped Sahelian medicine or mainly served as prestige objects. Witnessing ink flow into fresh lines, you feel cross-pollination in motion. Moon climbs higher. Courtyard floor cools, releasing heat stored since dawn. You sit on a low bench, stretch calves, and find mind drifting back to creek swirl. Furnace roar, scale tilt, corridor, converging here under quiet arches. The mosque seems to pulse gently, as if mud walls remember every story told against them. You press a palm to one beam. Wood still warm from day's sun, it vibrates faintly with distant drums of the night market gearing up. That pulse sinks to your own, and you realize each act mining, plastering, bartering, praying is just different drumming upon the same earth until it remembers your rhythm. Distant muezzin from a smaller quarter calls the night's additional prayer. Sound loops over rooftops like silk cast in wind. Time to move. You stand, Give the bats a two-finger salute, sincere gratitude for insect patrol, and step through the archway back into alley dusk. The donkey follows, hooves whispering secrets into dust. Ahead, lanterns strung between stalls flicker invitingly, promising tigidage simmering and philosophers charging interest on opinions. Feet freshly washed, spirit freshly calibrated, you aim for that chaos with renewed energy. After all, you've got honest coins to spend and a goat theorem to publicize. Lanterns wink like copper coins tossed into a fountain of darkness. As you wade into the night market, an artery that only truly wakes once the sun clocks out, the first scent to mug your nostrils is sizzling tigidage, peanut paste bubbling in wide iron pans, spitting tiny fireworks of oil that snap against the rim. Vendors wield ladles with duel-ready swagger, flinging sauce over skewered goat strips, until glaze coats meet in a caramel sheen somewhere between desert sunset and pure culinary seduction. Joke number 1 leaps from your lips. Careful, that stew is so flirty it might propose before dessert. The nearest chef flourishes a ladle like an engagement ring, and everybody within 3 stalls cackles. A stream of moths spirals around cracked glass lanterns overhead, bumping each other like drunk philosophers in search of a brighter idea. Speaking of which, 2 actual philosophers occupy a rickety table beside the tigidage pit, arguing whether dreams are merely nights when the soul goes on caravan leave. One waves a chicken bone as pointer. The other sips fermented baobab beer and counters with kite string diagrams in the dust. You slide onto an empty crate, intrigued, but your stomach issues a louder thesis statement. You trade 1 lion stamp bonda for a bowl of steaming tigidage ladled over fluffy millet lumps. The vendor sprinkles crushed cola nut across the top quirky. Fringe tidbit, some swear cola dust keeps secrets from escaping the mouth, making it a popular garnish before gossip sessions. You spoon in cautiously. The sauce hugs tongue and teeth, peanut richness colliding with sneaky scorpion tail. Heat you remember from the kitchen paddle fiasco. A bead of sweat pops under your purple silk cape, but instead of panic, you feel a pleasant, slow-rolling thunder behind the forehead. Further down the row, a woman fans strips of dried fish coated in tamarind glaze. You snag one, its sweet acid bite, a welcome palate reset. Mainstream historical fact tags along. Night markets, like these dotted gold root towns, allowing trade caravans to replenish calories without losing daylight miles. Portable protein smoked fish, groundnut cakes, spiced jerky was logistic. Lifeblood long before energy bars hit hipster shelves. Your donkey appears between stalls. Lavender sachet now dragging in dust like a censer whose holiness expired. It eyes your tigidage, drills a line worthy of irrigation. You break off a millet clump, blow to cool, then offer. The donkey slurps, brays approval, and smacks lips so loudly heads turn. Joke number 2, you stage whisper, 5-star review, says, sauce pairs well with lavender. Applause flutters. Some think you're quoting the goat theorem, which by now circulates faster than the beeswax scandal. A spice dealer beckons, waving a palm-sized pouch of powdered moringa. He claims 1 pinch in morning porridge grants eyesight sharp enough to spot deceitful scales at 20 paces. You raise a brow. Already got a camel calorie for that. He counters by tossing moringa into the brazier, releasing an herbal plume that sends moths into ecstatic salsa. Historians still argue whether market theatrics like smoke spells genuinely boosted sales, or if buyers simply feared looking unimpressed in front of peers. Either way, you buy a half-pouch never hurts to hedge vision bets. Music winds in, a trio with balafon, calabash drum, and a single metal scraper stolen from a blacksmith's off-cut bin. They launch into a syncopated riff that folds the whole. Market into one breathing organism. Vendors keep ladles in time. Children stomp until millet husks dance. Even your donkey's tail flicks metronome perfect. You toss them a small coin, and the scraper player flips it mid-solo for flashy percussion dot as you wander. Lanterns paint everyone amber, while shadows mimic their actions half a second late ghost choreography. A potter demonstrates Roku-style glazing, plunging red-hot bowls into water that bursts into steam clouds. He insists the shock locks in stories, so the next owner absorbs market gossip by eating from the bowl. Joke number 3 surfaces, guaranteed. Eavesdropping. At last, a dish that serves hot tea and spills it too. The potter laughs, promising you a discounted price on the drama cup, set next market day dot. Beyond Pottery Row sits an herbalist. Jars glowing green under firefly. Lampstones. One jar holds a thick paste labeled in tidy Tifana runes. She claims it's made from roasted mango pits and donkey milk. Yes, donkey again, and works as sunscreen, insect repellent, and conversation starter. Scholars remain skeptical historians. Still argue whether such multi-tool salves truly protected Sahel travelers or merely scented them like walking fruit baskets. You dab a smudge on your wrist. Immediate aroma of caramelized citrus mingles with faint barnyard undertone. Strangely pleasant, like the desert decided to wear cologne for date night, hungry seconds conquer again. You queue at a stall famed for GB deep-fried rice balls rolled in baobab sugar. The cook uses 2 battered spoons to flick spheres into oil, each sizzle louder than last. You recall the Mintmaster's sunburst eye trick and consider whether these spheres hide molten cores. Answer arrives as you bite. Crisp shell cracks, releasing cinnamon vapor hot enough to nearly brand the inside of your mouth. You dance a quiet agony jig. The philosophers applaud, mistaking you for illustrating cosmic impermanence. Nearby, Goat Monarch returns, now sporting a necklace of glass beads, probably pilfered from caravan spillage. It eyes your second rice ball defiantly. You hand it over. Not worth another uprising. The goat chews with smug slowness, strutting off toward the philosophy table, doubtless ready to chair the ethics committee on unauthorized snacking. Overhead, that's yes, mosque freeloaders have followed insects to this buffet and now dive-bomb lanterns, gulping moths mid-spin. One bat drops a wing-beat plume of dust onto a ladle, causing the chef to yell, "Free protein bonus!" No one protests. Laughter is another currency here, convertible at all stalls. You pause at a stall lined with leather scroll cases etched with zigzag motifs. The artisan rolls one open to reveal a fresh map illustrating new wells and rumored gold flecks along a southern tributary. Tempting, but you remember the guide's caution. Wealth must circulate, not merely accumulate. Instead of purchase, you exchange knowledge showing where termite mound clay can be dug for sturdy kill linings. She marks the spot. In return, she gives you a tiny compass bead that always rolls north when placed on flatwood. Quirky tech or clever magnet? Time will judge. Finally, appetite sated, pockets lighter, you lean against a storage crate, gazing down the glowing lane. Oil droplets from frying still snap in background like miniature forecasts of tomorrow's furnace. You close eyes, letting the balafon hum stitch memories. Crooked scale victory, camel caravans, termite sandstone, hallelujah bats, lavender season donkey reviews. Everything tastes of peanut, smoke, and maybe destiny on low heap, mid-reflection. The philosophers call for a late-night roundtable and point at you guest speaker on goat monarchy economics. You bow out, brain full, eyelids heavy. The donkey nudges, guiding you home like a slightly aromatic chaperone. Lanterns dim behind, moths follow the brightest survivors, and distant drums fade to heart-level bass. You clutch the compass bead, trusting it will lead your dreams somewhere north of mundane dot. Back at your doorway, you pause, listening. The market's roar has receded to soft murmur, like surf you've never seen but already miss. You scratch donkey ear final superstition. Maintenance, then step inside, the smell of ticket age still ghosting the air. Tomorrow brings starlit rooftops and monsoon memories, but tonight, belly warm, you sink onto your mat, certain that if consciousness were a scale, this day tipped in favor of stories over dust and maybe a tiny bit of kosher goat drama. The night has eaten the last ember of the lanterns, but the rooftops keep their own invitations wide. Flat stages of cooled mud where you can fling your limbs without bumping a neighbor's elbow. You climb the exterior torn ladder, each wooden peg, warm from stored sunlight, and roll onto the top like a sea star surrendering to the tide. Up here, silence feels thick enough to slice, interrupted only by the donkey's contented snore below and a far-off goat bleating its final edits to tomorrow's constitution. You spread the purple-sooted cape as a blanket, lavender sachet tucked under your neck for bonus aromatherapy. Joke number 1 drifts upward. Congratulations, you've achieved the deluxe suite roof view. 0 walls, unlimited starlight, no checkout time. You blink, and the sky explodes. The desert, stingy by day, overspends at night, pouring diamonds across. Indigo velvet until the constellations elbow each other for personal space. The Milky Way hangs like a river of spilt cow milk, white, ragged, deliciously cold-looking. You trace it with a finger, remembering furnace gold pouring in a similar ribbon. Except this one never cools, never taxes, and always passes the purity test. Beside you lies the compass bead from the night market. You set it on a shard of roof tile. It rolls north, obedient to secrets baked into its clay. A quirky fringe tidbit surfaces. Caravan scouts swear similar beads begin to actually hum, when sandstorms brew beyond the horizon. Diving merchants. A 4-hour head start, you press an ear close. Silence. So tonight's weather forecast is clear skies, occasional existential dread. You start mapping constellations the Griot slipped into his saga. There's the lion, easy, the twin drummers, and far left, that crook line dubbed the way beam after the brass scale. You add your own dot to dot. 3 stars over the mosque tower align with a faint spark near the horizon, call it the Goat King's crown. You whisper the name. Somewhere below, hooves clop approval. Mainstream historical fact twinkles to mind. During Mali's golden centuries, scholars in Timbuktu composed treatises on astronomy, blending Andalusian charts with local sky lore, ensuring caravans navigated by both mathematical star tables and folk tales about celestial fish guiding lost nomads. Those manuscripts still exist, brittle but stubborn, in cedar chests smelling of desert rose. You muse that one might mention your newly christened crown. If a scribe is listening through time, a sudden streak slices the sky meteor, swift and silent. You suck a breath so sharp it whistles. The donkey down below jerks awake, brays, then lapses into encore snores. Joke number 2, poor beast dreams it just got promoted to shooting star and is late for its orbit shift. You wish it lucked out with each passing minute. More stars materialize, faint pricks your eyes hadn't earned yet. You recognize the caravan road in the heavens. A crooked S that travelers claim mirrors the Niger's hidden loops. You imagine traders at distant outposts gazing at this same script, feeling the same tug of homesickness shaped like a string. Of camels, a muffled flap announces the Huron's arrival. It lands on the parapet, neck folded tight, eyes glimmering galaxy light. Birds sleep, sure, but this one seems on night watch, perhaps checking your cartography credentials. You nod, point at a bright cluster. That's the donkey's ear brushwards off Skygen. The Huron blinks slowly, neither confirming nor denying your fabrications. Historians still argue whether Sahelian traders genuinely used animal-inspired star maps, or if later storytellers grafted livestock onto constellations for comic effect. Either possibility feels plausible while negotiating with the judgmental bird. Soft breeze ferries market echoes, frying oil ghosts, balafon reverbs, and folds them into rooftop hush. You inhale, the coolness coats lungs like minted silk. Somewhere to the east, heat lightning flickers, staining clouds violet. The bolts stay speechless, but childhood tales claim those flashes are colossal desert cats sharpening claws. You half believe tonight, because belief is cheaper than an armed escort. Time for instrumentation. You extend your arm, fist clenched, thumb up old navigator's trick. By stacking thumbwits between horizon and the star Altair, you guess. Maybe 3 hours until dawn. Joke number 3 murmurs, thumbs, the original smartwatch, 0 charging cable. You wiggle the digit in self-congratulatory nerdiness. Thoughts drift to tomorrow's creek swirl. Gold dust seems laughably small compared to starfire, yet those flecks reorder lives, fund mosques, and coax grites into encore verses. You roll onto your side, elbow propped. The river of sky dust above may be unreachable, but its reflection, in water and ingot form, sits right under your fingernails, a recursion that tickles your philosophy itch. Down below, the philosophers probably still dual chicken bone theses. You make a note to tell them, the universe is a scaled-up gold panlight and time swirl until meaning settles. They'll either applaud or revoke your guest pass. Another meteor flares greenish, leaving a smoke tail that fades in 2 heartbeats. You remember the kola nut superstition, wonder if sprinkling kola dust toward the stars might lure more meteors. Instead, you toss a fleck of salt, your mini-planet, skyward. It arcs, sparkles in lantern residue, then vanishes. The Huron croaks applause, critique. Either way, performance art concluded. Silence thickens. You sense your mind beginning to decelerate, thoughts stretching into long, syrupy lines between constellations. Badonki's snores, once comic, morph into a metronome studying your pulse. Roof warmth seeps through cape into skin, convincing muscles they're sand dunes settling after a day's wind. You fold arms over chest, tuck coin pouch as pillow boost, and let eyelids half drop. Yet one last ritual. You find the North Star, Polaris, anchor of travelers. You press the compass bead onto your sternum, feeling clay cool and steady. You promise yourself that no matter how many crooked scales, goat coos, or furnace sparks tomorrow hurls, you'll recalibrate nightly under this stellar benchmark. The bead stays put like a second heart not yet awake. A final rustle bats streak overhead. Silent missiles hoovering midnight insects. You raise 2 fingers in bat salute. Perhaps they'll double any dreams you're owed. Sky listens, patient. Earth rotates, subtle. In that vast pivot, your tiny roof becomes a celestial observation deck, and you, gold dust wrangler turned amateur astronomer, recline exactly where history wanted a witness. Breath slows. Stars blur into gentle cotton buds. The Milky Way softens, smearing into a luminous river you feel you could swim without moving. Your last conscious chuckle. If you do drift among those currents, please tell the vulture Yelp critics the view truly is 5 stars would orbit again. Then mine melts, becoming part of the night's quiet treaty between furnace fire and cosmic ice, between weighed dust and weightless dreams. Dawn tickles your eyelids with a salmon pink flicker, and you wake to the rooftop's baked clay grain, imprinting your cheek like a secret tattoo. The donkey below greets sunrise with a heroic bray that ricochets off empty streets. You answer with a grunt-fair diplomatic exchange and gingerly sit up, cape dusted with fallen starlight and stray bat guano, free souvenirs. A humid breath brushes your skin, strange for this dry spell. You sniff, petrichor phantom, that earthy perfume always 1 raindrop ahead of the storm. It carries something sweeter to half mango blossom, half wet adobe. Memory pounces. You scramble down the torn ladder, compass bead clinking against ribs, and land in a lane hushed as a library before gossip hour. Air feels weighty as if the sky filled its lungs and forgot to exhale. Women pause mid-sweep, nose tips tilted like weather vanes. Somewhere a child squeals, rain ghosts, you grin. Joke number 1, at least these spirits bathe themselves, better hygiene than certain goat monarchs. A gust arrives, hot yet moist, curling around you like steam escaping a kettle. With it, a whiff of fermented baobab leaf, of termite clay relaxing, of acacia resin liquefying in anticipation. You shut eyes and are yanked backward to last year's monsoon. The afternoon walls wept and streets turned to mud chocolate. Goats hydroplaned, and fishermen casually paddled calabash boats past the tax porch. Mainstream historical fact tags along. The Sahel's brief annual rains once swelled the Niger's tributaries, creating pop-up marshes that fertilized millet fields and recharged wells. A cycle so crucial that caravans timed departures by cloud. Watching more than lunar calendars, your feet carry you to the courtyard you plastered. The fresh termite clay patch now darkened several shades, exhaling sugary damp. Boubacar the mason stands there too, palm pressed to wall, listening. He quotes an old proverb, when mud drinks first, people sip later. Then nods at you too. Help prep water channels. Both of you dig shallow ruts with wooden hose, guiding runoff away from doorways and toward communal cisterns. Quirky fringe tidbit pops from Babacar's tool bag, a tiny clay frog figurine he buries by each channel fork. Claiming frogs court the rain goddess and shoo scorpions off the floodplain. You plant one, feeling half engineer, half matchmaker. Heavy clouds shuffle in, bruised and rumbling. The donkey parks under an awning, lavender sachet finally earning paycheck number 2 as humidity revives its scent. You drag empty jars into neat rows. Last year, the deluge filled them so quickly some cracked from cold shock. Historians still argue whether Sahel builders deliberately engineered slight imperfections in rooftop channels so excess water spilled onto streets, binding dust into sturdier mud or simply causing bonus slip and slide fun for goats. Evidence: both outcomes occurred. First droplets spatter fat, warm, and each one smacks ground with a puff of scent so rich you taste it. Rain intensifies from polite knocks to drumming palms on drumskin earth. People whoop, tossing headscarves. Skyward, Boubacar cackles, claiming free roof testing service. You're instantly soaked. Purple soot cape bleeds sunset swirls down your arms like abstract art. Joke number 2. Congratulations. You're a limited edition tie-dye lined with questionable fiscal records. Water channels gurgle, frogs, possibly ceramic, possibly real, croak. Approval. Kids skid through puddles, scooping handfuls of mud to paint each other's cheeks. A lanky trader flips his empty salt slab upright, watching it dissolve into mineral soup insurance write-off embraced. You join a spontaneous bucket. Brigade moving runoff toward thirsty fig trees, their leaves trembling like fans at a celebrity sighting. One woman sprinkles cola nut powder onto roots supposedly supercharges growth. You suspect cola just wants cameo in every ritual. The smell intensifies, layers upon layers. Fresh split bamboo from mat roofs. Peppery artemisia crushed underfoot. Sulfur hints where lightning somewhere far south scorches ozone. You inhale greedily, convinced lungs will pickle the aroma for dry season cravings. Among it all hovers that faint metallic tang, reminiscent of furnace slag cooling reminder that even stormwater teases. Gold flecks buried beneath dots, sudden hush rain stops as if slapped by the sky's off switch. Drips persist from eaves, plinking. Into jars, ground steams, releasing fog ghosts that curl around ankles. Joke number 3 surfaces, barefoot spa treatment, 0 coin entry, exfoliation courtesy of microgravel. People laugh, flex toes in silky sludge, with clouds still growling east. You walk riverward. Creek once timid now growls, swirling caramel brown. Heron perches on half-submerged log, expression reading, management regrets this inconvenience. It watches minnows flood-swept upstream of fish all-inclusive vacation. You debate panning mud-rich overflow. Historians note miners sometimes harvested flood-borne gold more efficiently than digging, but today feels too sacred for commerce. You let the water roar unplundered. Returning townside, you spot goats scaling newly slick walls in parkour delight. One yep, the monarch sports bead necklace now gleaming rain-washed. It sights you, bows, or slips. Hard to tell, then bolts across puddles, kicking miniature geysers. Maybe coups are seasonal too. Boubacar flags you to checkpoint number 2, roof inspection. You clamber ladder, raindrops still ricochet from parapet. Up top, pools gather by torn beams. You check your fresh one, it holds firm, no leaks. Satisfaction mixes with petrichor until you could bottle the blend as ode to structural integrity. Below, families spread millet on mats for flash soaking, a trick softening husks before pounding. Innovation never naps, not even in storms. Sun cracks the cloud blanket, slanting. Beams that hit wet adobe and flare into blinding gold. Steam rises, twisting into incense. For a moment, streets glitter as if the very dust liquefied into Treasure Monsoon's minor miracle display. You recall Griot prophecy of riches in tomorrow's vein. Maybe the sky just gave preview footage. People gather in square to celebrate drain dance, a tradition you'd missed, where villagers stomp puddles to propel water toward gutters. You join, splashing rhythmic chaos. Thalathon players appear. Did they waterproof instruments? And rework last night's riff into rain tempo. Dolphins might envy your leaps. Sandals suction, release. Children shriek. Elders too, just lower frequency. Finally, exhaustion taps shoulders. Rain smell fades into damp earth aftershave. The donkey trots beside you, lavender now diluted to herbal whisper. You pass the fig tree. Its carved notches drink droplets like old scars smiling. A brand new groove gleams someone. Out it during storm. You trace it, goat hoof pattern. Lover's mark. Future historians will file petitions for explanation. Boubacar appears, handing you a cup of warm ginger baobab tea brewed with fresh roof runoff. The liquid tastes like sunshine shaking hands with root spice. You sip, feel blood hum. Clouds. Depart west, tails ragged, leaving a polished blue you've never seen in dry season sharper. Deeper you dub it, refreshed indigo. As town settles into drenched tranquility, you stroll alley to home, sandals squishing. Walls you plastered look richer in color, termite clay flexing glossy muscles. At your doorway, water cascades from roof spout into jar already brimming. You cap it, precious stored monsoon for laundry, stews, maybe ritual mint weight blessing dot inside. Floor cool and slick. You lay cape across bench to drip dry into modern art installation. Damp air hums with promise of mosquito swarms, but bats above rafters rustle, warming up for night shift. You kneel, whisper thanks, whether to rain goddess, termite engineers, or frog figurines you aren't sure. Gratitude likes multiple inboxes, day edges toward dusk. The smell outside shifts again, from fresh mud to early ferment, as puddles begin their slow journey into memory. You step back out, inhale reaffirmation, and file monsoon's perfume deep in mental archives labeled smells that outlive empires. Tomorrow, creek water will run clearer, gold dust heavier, gossip refreshed. But tonight, slick streets reflect. Torchlight like molten bronze, turning every footstep into ripples of history's best cologne. Dusk hovers like a hesitant storyteller. Pages in hand, not sure the crowd is still listening. You stroll Main Street, sandals squelching faintly from lingering monsoon puddles, and inhale what passes for post-rain freshness, damp millet husk, cooling adobe, and that haunting metallic tang of hopes oxidizing in open air. Stalls that pulsed. Midnight colors last week now sit shuttered or half-stalked. The spice dealer's pyramid slumped to sad little dunes. Even the goat monarch inspects them with a face reading economic downturn. Joke number 1. When a goat notices inflation, you know the market's BAA-D. You approach the well at the square's center. Its wooden windlass protests in arthritic groans as two boys haul up a bucket. Rope fibers squeal, reminding you of the caravan. Captain's knees. A thin trickle spills over the rim far less than yesterday. Mainstream historical facts seeps in. Chronic droughts of the early 15th century, combined with new Atlantic trade lanes, began bleeding interior towns like this of caravan traffic and tax revenue. The bucket's echo feels like that history knocking. Anyone home? With water scarce, conversation flows instead. Fatima, the linen seller, confides she's bundling unsold cloth for a coastal venture. Sailors pay in cowries now, not gold. A smith sharpens a chisel that may never meet fresh ore. He mutters about shifting to iron tool repair if miners drift away. Historians still argue whether environmental change or political. Fragmentation tipped Mali's trade towns into decline first. Listening to these side hustle plans, you suspect a duet of both. You wander past the furnace yard. Chimneys stand cold, mouths stuffed with rain-wet ash. Yesterday's molten roar has collapsed into a damp cough. A lone apprentice pokes embers, trying to revive a glow that sputters like a punchline without a setup. He shrugs, tells you caravans are bringing refined ingots now. Less dust to skim, more time for naps. Quirky fringe tidbit. He's experimenting with turning slag into glass beads, betting jewelry survives long after coinage melts away. You pocket a prototype, green, bubbly, pretty in a post-apocalyptic chic. Farther on, market awnings sag, heavy with rainwater and light on customers. The philosophy table hosts only one thinker tonight, doodling spirals in damp dust, while arguing with himself about whether absence is a form of presence wearing an invisibility cloak. You drop him a rice ball. He thanks you without looking up. Lost in budget existentialism. Joke number 2 surfaces. Philosophy's just gossip that forgot the names. He snorts, proof the ears still work dot at the tax porch. The brass scale hangs idle, lion-stamped snouts dulled by humidity. The treasurer sits alone, polishing a rook, the missing chess piece finally redeemed by its traveling owner who, rumor, says switch to trading pepper. The treasurer sighs aloud. Fewer weights to measure, fewer bribes to ignore. He shows you a cracked weight dead from corrosion, croaks, even metal retires. You glance at your compass bead. North still pulls, but maybe the destination has moved. Evening wind picks up, rattling Tauran beams overhead like bones of a giant maraca. Boubacar appears, studying cracks spider webbing a warehouse corner, the mud shrinking too fast after that. Brief rain. He whistles low. Takes years to build, months to crumble, he says. You help smear emergency mortar while he recounts moves. Timbuktu scholars now charge double to copy manuscripts because patrons pay in imported silver coins that don't quite fit the old abacus columns. Monetary systems shifting beneath your plaster-streaked fingers grate another variable across the lane. Jibril the Griot tunes his kora under wavering torchlight. Instead of epics, tonight he sings a softer song, part lullaby, part audit. Lyrics drift, gold leaves silent, dust returns loud. Listeners sit farther apart, like social distance for grief they're not ready to confess. You flick a coin honest. Wait, honest ring, and he nods gratitude, sliding the note of hope right after your gesture. Your donkey ambles up, lavender sachet now at brittle husk. It nudges your thigh, asking with its eyes if tomorrow still promises leftover ticketage. You scratch its ear. Word ritual feels poignant now, like renewing insurance on a collapsing empire. Joke number 3. Cheer up, at least tourists love ruins. The donkey brays, undecided if that's optimism or surrender. You stroll toward the creek tonight, a swollen ribbon from the rain but already receding. Pan in hand, you scoop muddy swirl out of habit more than expectation. When the silt settles, only 3 lonely flecks wink. You smile anyway, whispering, "Still counts." Because maybe wealth's new job description is simply reminding you you're still here, still swirling, back through alleys, torches gutter as wind carries hints of distant drums, maybe caravans, more likely thunder. You pass the fig tree. The freshly cut notch gleams. You carve another tiny mark beneath it, a crescent echo of your mason signature, vowing the story lingers even if gold forgets the address. Above, that's wheel from moss grafters, insect patrol unwavering despite. Fiscal downturn. Cosmic coupons still valid. The goat monarch materializes atop a half-collapsed stall. Bead necklace jangle reduced to a single glass bubble, the slag prototype. It locks eyes, then bleeds a sound suspiciously like a defiant laugh into the night. Empires fade, goats persist. You salute the resilient tyrant. Hierarchy reboots, but hooves remain. Lanterns thin. The square empties. You linger at Well Edge, where reflections of torches shiver with wind. Wells creak, stalls echo, but heartbeat holds steady. Maybe tomorrow wants gold here. Maybe it wants salt, silver, goat milk sunscreen, or stories on frog waterproof paper. Whatever currency it chooses, you'll weigh it, pan it, plaster it, and bribe a griot to sing it. Towns shrink, but people improvise. And in that improvisation, you catch the faint clink of possibility, lighter than dust, heavier than despair. Torches ebb to embers, their glow soft as whispered secrets slipping between sleepy walls. You step back from the well, letting the hush settle over shoulders like a velvet shawl. Each breath travels slower now, drawing in the gentle musk of rain-washed clay and exhaling the day's clamor in patient waves. In the distance, the griots. Final chora chord drifts away, a silver thread unspooling until it fades into the rustle of palm fronds swaying against the night. Let your feet grow heavy, solace sinking into cool dust that cradles every curve. Feel the air itself lengthen, pauses stretching between cricket chirps, between the soft creak of beams, between one heartbeat and the next. Lantern light dwindles, and with it colors dissolve into calming twilight grays. The donkey settles nearby, steady breaths matching yours, a quiet metronome guiding you into slower rhythms. Above, clouds slide apart, revealing the familiar scatter of stars you traced earlier. Notice how their edges blurred just a touch, as though the sky is smudging harsh outlines to make room for dreams. Your eyelids mimic that blur, lowering while thoughts float loose and light, like beads freed from a snapped string. Pebbles of memory gold flecks, goat rebellions, lavender whispers drift down, settling gently where they please. No need to chase them. They're safe here, embedded in the soft silt of rest. Allow your body to lean into gravity's embrace. Muscles untying, breath easing, mind sailing onto a calm, dark river where tomorrow's questions can wait on the far bank. For now, only the quiet lap of night remains, soothing, steady, sure. Let it carry you farther from wakefulness until even the faint creak of the well fades, and peace settles like fine dust upon a silent town. Sweet dreams.